Chat room. How are you guys doing today? I hope you're all doing real good. We're gonna just get right the fuck into it. I know that there's not a billion people here yet, but we'll get there pretty quick, I'm sure. Let's get physical, physical. Let me hear your body talk. Hell yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. Captions should capture right away. Hello, hello. Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Dead Boy to you. Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Everybody help me welcome Dead Boy to you. Make sure that they feel welcome here. Sorry to hear about your car. I hope you got it fixed. The mechanic has been taking their sweet time, so we still don't have it. I'm walking everywhere. Hello, I'm here for the coup. Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what we're doing. All right, I am going to just go ahead and start it. If you guys want to give me 3 readies, you can. I've got My black coffee, 0 calories for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I checked my weight today. I'm not going to say what it was, but it's embarrassing. It's not a nice number. It's not a number that I like. This fasting better fucking work because it's brutal. It's actually not that bad. We got 3 readies right away. Excellent. All right. Here we go, everybody. I said, here we go, and then there's going to be like a bunch of silence. Oh, you did do 2. I didn't even catch it. You sneaky, sneaky, sneak. Sneaky, sneak. You got me. Hi, Reaper. How are you? I'm very shiny. I decided it was way too hot for makeup today, so I'm shiny and gross. Can y'all like super hear my fan? Is my fan really loud? There's no way I can turn it off. I just want to make sure that it's not like miserable for you guys. Okay, Bartek, have fun. Good to see ya. We'll probably be here when you get done unless you're hanging out super late.
The Select Committee to investigate
volume good, picture good. Oh wow, that is very big. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'll move the captions.
Is authorized to declare the committee in recess.
Captions.
At any point. Pursuant to House Deposition Authority Regulation.
We're gonna put the captions 10, over here.
Chair announces the committee's approval to release the deposition material presented during today's hearing.
Can't really hear fan. Good.
Good afternoon. When I think about the most basic way to explain
that's A-okay, Alec. It's good to see you. How are you?
States,
hi.
There's a phrase that always comes to mind.
Oh, gimmick gamer. I do not wake up fabulous. I was disgusting this morning. I showered at least, and my hair is combed through.
Sometimes my choice prevails. Sometimes yours does. But it's that simple. We cast our votes. We count the votes. If something seems off with the results, we can challenge them in court, and then we accept the results.
Fuck with what you
when you're
guys
on
are
the
saying.
Losing side,
no, okay,
that
excellent.
doesn't mean you have to be happy about it. And in the United States, there's plenty you can do and say so. You can protest. You can organize. You can get ready for the next election to try to make sure your side has a better chance the next time the people sell their differences at the ballot box. But you can't turn violent. You can't try to achieve
learning to love black coffee
through force or harassment or intimidation. Any real leader who sees their supporters going down that path, approaching that line, has a responsibility to say, stop. We gave it our best. We came up short. We try again next time, because we settle our differences at the ballot box. On December 14th, 2020, the presidential election was officially over. The Electoral College had cast
I'm
its
doing
vote.
better now. I'm glad you're
Joe
better now.
Biden
Going to get ice cream with
was
my
the
partner tomorrow, and as childish
of the
as it
United
sounds, I
States.
cannot wait.
By that point, many of Donald Trump's supporters
I am 36
were
years
already
old,
convinced
and I
that the
fucking
election
get
had been
stoked for
stolen,
ice cream. Don't
because that's
even
what Donald
remotely
Trump
feel like that
had been
sounds
telling them.
childish. You're wonderful.
So what Donald Trump was required to do in that moment, what would have been required
my
of
desk is
any
a hot fucking mess,
American
dude. I
leader
need to clean off
was
my
to
desk
say,
bad.
we did our best, and we came up
Let's
short.
do
He went the opposite way.
this.
He seized on the anger he had already stoked among his most loyal supporters, and as they approached the line, he didn't wave them off. He urged them on. Today, the committee will explain how, as a part of his last-ditch effort to overturn the election and block the transfer of power, Donald Trump summoned a mob to Washington, D.C., and
Feel like you can
ultimately
see the
spurred
yarn
that
so much
mob
better
to
this
wage
time.
a violent attack on our democracy.
Hi, Dragon Rana. How are you?
Our colleagues, Ms. Murphy of Florida and Mr. Raskin of Maryland, will lay out this story. First, I'm pleased to recognize our distinguished Vice Chair, Ms. Cheney of Wyoming, for any opening comments she'd care to offer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our committee did not conduct a hearing last week, but we did conduct an on-the-record interview of President Trump's former White House counsel, Pat Cipollone.
Rana, I'm going to
If you've
actually have
watched
some
these
work for
hearings,
you to do
you've heard
soon,
us call for
finally.
Mr. Cipollone to come forward to testify. He did, and Mr. Cipollone's testimony met our expectations.
She's fucking not. She's like
We will
27, my
save
partner.
for
Oh
our
my
next
God.
hearing
Your partner is
President
my
Trump's
partner
behavior
now.
during the violence of January 6th. Today's hearing will take us from December 14th, 2020, when the Electoral College met and certified the results of the 2020 presidential election, up through the morning of January 6th. You will see certain segments of Pat Cipollone's testimony today. We will also see today how President Trump
Oh my
summoned a
God,
mob
I
to
was supposed to
Washington
pay you
and how the president's
today.
stolen election lies provoked that mob to attack the Capitol.
I'm
We will
withdrawing
hear
right
from a
now.
man who
Sorry,
was
chat room.
induced
Give me
by
1
President
second.
Trump's
This is
lies
important.
to come to Washington and join the mob, and how that decision has changed his life. Today's hearing is our 7th. We have covered significant ground over the past several weeks, and we have also seen a change in how witnesses and lawyers in the Trump orbit approach this committee. Initially, their strategy in some
It's
cases
going to take it until
appeared to
Monday or
be to
Tuesday.
deny
I'm
and
so
delay.
sorry.
Today,
But
there
I can
appears to
send
be a
you- I can
general
send you money,
recognition that the committee
tomorrow.
has established key facts.
I am so
including
sorry.
that
I
virtually
might even be
everyone
able to do it
close to
tonight after
President Trump,
stream. I'll have
his
to
Justice
look, but
Department
I should
officials,
be able to
his
do
White
it.
House advisors, his White House counsel, his campaign, all told him the 2020 election was not stolen. This appears to have changed the strategy for defending Donald Trump.
We weren't expecting anything
Now
until
the
next week
argument
anyway.
seems to be
okay. Well, that's good.
that President Trump
it's
was
today. It's
manipulated
supposed to be
by
today. I
others
just
outside the
completely
administration,
fucking forgot.
that he was persuaded to
And
ignore his
they keep
closest
changing how
advisors,
long it takes
and
for
that he was
OnlyFans to like send the
incapable
money
of telling
through.
right from wrong. This new strategy is to try to
It's
blame
awful.
only John
I
Eastman
am
or
very
Sidney
sorry.
Powell
It's been so
or Congressman Scott Perry or others,
unpredictable.
and not President Trump. In this version, the president was, quote, poorly served by these outside advisors. The strategy is to blame people his advisors called, quote, the crazies for what Donald Trump did. This, of course, is nonsense. President Trump is a 76-year-old man. He is not an impressionable child. Just like everyone else in our country, he is responsible for his own actions and his own choices. As our investigation has shown, Donald Trump had access to more detailed and specific information showing that the election was not actually stolen than almost any other American, and he was told this over and over again. No rational or sane man in his position could disregard that information and reach the opposite conclusion. And
Fucking
Donald
hell, I
Trump
thought he was older.
cannot
He-
escape
yeah.
responsibility by being willfully
He
blind.
looks early 80s,
Nor
hey?
can any argument of any kind
It's that
excuse
hairstyle.
President
If he
Trump's
changed his
behavior
hair, he
during
would
the
look a
violent
lot
attack
better.
on January 6th.
He will
As you
always
watch
make
our hearing
me
today,
nauseated,
I would
but
urge you to
he's
keep
not
your
doing
eye
himself
on
any
two
favors.
specific points. First, you will see evidence that Trump's legal team,
That's for
led by
dang
Rudy
sure.
Giuliani, knew that they lacked actual evidence of widespread
I
fraud.
feel like they go
sufficient to
over
prove
this
that the
same
election
exact
was actually
point
stolen.
every
They knew it,
time, every
But
hearing.
they went ahead with January 6th
keep just finding
anyway.
evidence. Like, why would you
And
not
second,
just present all of this
consider how
evidence on the
millions
same
of
day?
Americans were persuaded to believe what Donald Trump's closest
zoned out who's in their
advisors
20s
in his
and 70s.
administration did not.
Alex Partner said that I
These
looked
Americans did not
27,
have
which made
access
me
to the truth like
blush.
Donald Trump did. They
but
put their faith
Donald Trump
and
is
their trust
76.
in Donald Trump. They wanted to believe in him. They wanted to fight for their country, and he deceived them.
Does everything look and sound
Millions of
okay? Do we need to
Americans,
turn
that
up
may be
the
painful to
video or
accept, but it is
myself or
true.
anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Without objection,
Zombie
the chair
Broccoli, how are
recognizes
ya?
the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Murphy, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, for opening statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that then President Donald Trump lost in a free and fair election. And yet, President Trump insisted that his loss was due to fraud in the election process, rather than to the democratic will of the voters. The president continued to make this claim despite being told again and again by the courts, by the Justice Department, by his campaign officials,
Better
and
now
by
that it's
some
the
of his
weekend.
closest
Good.
advisors
Happy to hear
that
it.
the evidence did not support this assertion. This was the big lie, and millions of Americans were deceived by it.
This lady's voice
Too
is
many of our
fucking
fellow citizens
delicious.
still believe it to this
I
day.
love her voice.
It's corrosive to our country and damaging to our democracy. As our committee has shown in prior hearings, following the election, President Trump relentlessly pursued
Sounding
multiple
broccoli.
interlocking lines of effort, all
Let's
with a
just
single
kiss a
goal,
little.
to remain in power despite
I'm
having
sorry. I'm
lost.
being inappropriate and
The
rude.
lines of effort
I
were
didn't
aimed at
mean
his
that.
loyal
I didn't
Vice
mean to make you
President
feel
Mike Pence,
uncomfortable. It
at
was
state
supposed to be
election
funny.
and
It's
elected
not funny.
officials,
I'm an
and
asshole. I
at the U.S.
apologize.
Department of Justice. The president pressured the vice president to obstruct the process to certify the election result. He demanded that state officials find him enough votes to overturn the election outcome in that state.
He's joining
and he
Twitch sometime
pressed
in the
the
next few
Department of
weeks. They're a
Justice to
simp
find
now. Sorry in
widespread
advance.
evidence of fraud.
Listen.
When justice
I
officials
simped
told
back.
the president
Okay.
that such evidence did not exist, the president urged them to simply declare that the election was corrupt. On December 14th, the Electoral College met to officially confirm.
No, you're
that Joe
absolutely
Biden would be
right,
the
Moss.
next
You're
president.
super, super
The
right.
evidence shows
I
that once
think
this occurred,
that that's
President
like
Trump
part of the
and those who
reason
were
that
willing to
these
aid and abet
QAnon
their
weirdos
attention
have
to the
gotten
joint session
so
of
successful,
Congress
have become so
scheduled for
successful at what they
January
do,
6th, at
is
which the
because
vice
they
president
have
would
these
preside.
these
In their
phrases
warped
that they
view,
repeat
this
ad nauseum.
ceremonial event was
right?
the next, and perhaps the last
Fucking
inflection
MAGA,
point that would be used to
stop the
reverse
steal,
outcome of the election
drain the
before Mr.
swamp,
Biden's
stuff like
inauguration.
that they can like chant
As
and
President
things
Trump
like
put it,
that gives
the
them
Vice President
power.
And enough members of Congress simply needed to summon the courage to act. To help them find that courage, the president
Buttery
called for
mails.
backup.
Did we have
Early in the morning
a
of December
caption?
19th, the president
caption,
sent out a
whoopsie?
tweet urging his followers to
Okay,
travel to Washington, D.C. for January 6th.
12, 13,
Be there.
14,
We'll be
15,
wild, the
16?
president wrote.
No.
As my colleague, Mr. Raskin, will describe
But
in
her
detail,
email.
this
Oh,
tweet served
butter
as a call to
emails,
action,
butter emails.
and in
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah, yeah.
cases,
Okay,
as a
gotcha,
call
gotcha,
to
gotcha,
arms
gotcha.
for many of President Trump's most loyal supporters. It's clear
If
the
you say
president
something enough, it
intended
becomes
the
real in your
assembled
mind,
crowd
anyway,
on
right?
The January
No matter
6th
how
to
much we
serve
say
his goal.
global warming isn't happening, that doesn't
And
make it
as
stop.
you've already seen,
That just makes
and
us
as you will
believe
see
it.
again today, some of those who were coming had specific plans. The president's goal was to
I
stay in
need to
power
look
for a
at
second
my
term
pattern
despite losing the
shortly
election.
here.
The
So
assembled
sorry.
crowd was one of the tools to achieve that goal. And in today's hearing, we will focus on events that took place in the final weeks leading up to January 6th, starting in mid-December. And we'll add color and context to evidence you've already heard about, and we'll also provide additional new evidence. For example, you'll hear about meetings in which the president entertained extreme measures designed to help him stay in power.
The last one was on
like
row
the seizure
8.
of voting machines.
And the next one
We
is
will
on
show
row
some of the
16.
coordination that occurred between the White House and members of
I feel
Congress
like
as it
we're,
relates
like,
to January
there.
6th. And some of these members of
2,
Congress
3,
would later
4,
seek
5,
pardon.
6, 7, 8.
We will also examine some of the
9,
planning for
10,
the January 6th
11,
protests,
12, 13.
placing special emphasis on one rally planner's concerns about the potential violence. And we will describe some of the
Yeah,
president's
okay.
key actions on the evening of January 5th
Feels
and
like
the morning
it's
of
gonna-
January 6th.
It feels like it
including
belongs
how the
here.
president edited
12.
and ad-libbed his speech that morning at the Ellipse, directed the crowd to march to the Capitol, and spoke off script in a way that further inflamed an
Not
already
12,
angry
8.
crowd. I
8,
yield to the gentleman
9.
from Maryland, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy,
10,
Mr. Chairman,
11,
Madam Vice
12,
Chair.
13. Yeah,
4
wow,
days after
okay.
the electors
So
met
not this
across
one,
the country and
but the
made
next
Joe
time we
Biden
start on
the
buttonhole side, we
president-elect,
have to do a
Donald Trump was
buttonhole.
still trying to find a way
Good
to hang on to the presidency.
to know.
On Friday, December 18th, his team of outside
Harleen,
advisors paid him a
hello.
surprise visit
How are
in the White
you?
House
It's
that
so
would
good to
quickly
see
become
you.
The stuff of legend.
Hi,
The
Quinn.
meeting has been called
You just landed
unhinged,
in Kansas
not
City.
normal, in the craziest
Fuck
meeting
Midwest
of the
summer.
Trump
Yeah, dude,
presidency.
in Canada, it's
The outside
hot. Like,
lawyers who've been
I'm
involved in
dying.
dozens of failed lawsuits
can see,
had
like,
lots
I'm
of
getting
theories
greasy.
supporting the big lie, but no evidence to support it. As we will see, however, they brought to the White House a draft
They're probably ass
executive
blushing now,
order
and
that
you've
they
been
had
invited for
prepared
ice
President
cream
Trump
tomorrow.
to further his ends.
I'll be there.
Specifically, they proposed the immediate mass seizure of state election machines.
What are you doing in
by
Kansas
the
City, if
US
you don't mind my
military.
asking?
The meeting ended after midnight with apparent rejection of that idea. In the wee hours of December 19th, dissatisfied with his
I can
options,
literally hear your
Donald Trump
voice
decided to call
yelling.
for
You don't
a
really
large
yell.
and
You get
wild
slightly
crowd
louder,
on Wednesday,
but I can
January
hear I can
6th,
hear your
the
voice
day when Congress would
yelling.
meet to certify
Fuck
the
Midwest.
electoral
I can
votes.
hear it in my head.
Never before in American history had a president called for a crowd to come contest the counting of electoral votes by Congress, or engaged in any effort designed to influence, delay, or obstruct.
Sorry.
the
Yeah,
joint
sorry. I
session of
didn't notice right
Congress
away.
in
I
doing
had to
its
look at my
work
pattern for a minute
required
there.
by our
I'm crocheting a
Constitution and the
hooded
Electoral
cloak.
Count Act.
There's I made one
As
already
we'll
for
see,
myself. There's
Donald
pictures
Trump's
of it on my
1:42
Twitter.
a.m. tweet
If you
electrified
go
and
to like my
galvanized
media
his
posts or whatever and
supporters,
scroll down,
especially
you'll be able
the
to find it.
dangerous
It's really sick. I'm
extremists
making
and the
one
Oath
for
Keepers,
Josiah's mom
the
now.
Proud Boys and other racist and white nationalist
Niece's wedding,
groups
okay. Have
spoiling for a
fun.
fight against the government.
Why do people get
Three
married in the
rings
summer?
of interwoven attack were
Why?
now
Why do
operating
people
towards
do that?
January 6th. On the inside ring, Trump
People who
continued
like
trying
summer
to work
just baffle
to
me. I
overturn
don't
the
get
election
it.
by getting Mike Pence
Like,
to
I get it for
abandon his
kids
oath
because
of
no
office as
school
vice
and, like,
president
fuck yeah,
and assert
but-
the unilateral power to reject electoral votes. This would have been a fundamental and unprecedented breach of the Constitution that would promise Trump multiple ways of staying in office. Meanwhile, in the
Oklahoma
middle
do
ring,
suck
members
nuts.
of domestic violent extremist groups created an alliance, both online
Why
and
do
in
people get
person,
married?
to coordinate a massive
tax
effort
breaks.
to storm, invade, and occupy the Capitol. By placing a target on the joint session of Congress,
I don't get
Trump
it
had
either. Winter's number
mobilized
one.
these groups
For me,
around a common
fall
goal,
just barely beats out
emboldening
winter,
them,
but I
strengthening
love
their working
winter.
relationships and helping build their numbers. Finally, in the outer ring, on January 6th, there assembled a large and angry crowd, the political force that Trump considered both the touchstone and the measure of his political power. Here were thousands of enraged Trump followers, thoroughly convinced by the big lie, who traveled from across the country to join Trump's wild rally to stop the steal. With the proper incitement by political leaders and the proper instigation from the extremists, many members of this crowd could be led to storm the Capitol, confront the vice president and Congress, and try to overturn the 2020 election results.
Okay, I'm
All
on
of these
14
efforts
right
would
now. I'm so
converge
sorry,
and
guys.
explode on
8,
January the 6th.
9, 10,
Mr.
11,
Chairman,
12,
as you know
13,
better
14.
than
We're
any
on
other
14.
member of this
Obviously,
committee,
we're on
from the
14.
wrenching
I'm a big
struggle
dumb
for voting
dumbo.
rights in your beloved Mississippi, the problem of
I
politicians
know that you kind
whipping
of
up
can't see right
mob
now, but that'll
violence
be fixed
to
in a minute.
destroy fair elections is the oldest domestic
Maybe
enemy
actually, what
of
if-
constitutional democracy in America. Abraham Lincoln knew it too. In 1837,
I feel
a
like
racist
this
mob
is
in
actually a
Alton,
better
Illinois,
place for
broke
these.
into the offices of an abolitionist newspaper and killed its editor, Elijah Lovejoy. Lincoln wrote a speech in which he said,
See you
that
later,
no
Quinn. Have fun.
transatlantic military giant could ever crush us as a nation, even with all of the fortunes in the world. But if downfall ever comes to America, he said, we ourselves would be its author and finisher. If racist mobs are encouraged by politicians to rampage and terrorize, Lincoln said, they will violate the rights of other citizens and quickly destroy the bonds of social trust necessary for democracy to work. Mobs and demagogues will put us on a path to political tyranny, Lincoln said. As we'll see today, this very old problem has returned with new ferocity today as a president who lost an election deployed a mob which included dangerous extremists to attack the constitutional system of
You
election
liked under the video?
and
I just don't
peaceful
wanna-
transfer of power. And as we'll see, the creation of the internet and social media has given today's tyrants tools of propaganda and disinformation
I'm worried
that
about-
yesterday's despots could only have dreamed of. I yield back to the gentle lady from Florida, Ms. Murphy.
I'm just worried about everything,
Article
honestly.
2 of the United
Fucking
States Constitution
anxiety.
establishes
What
the
up?
Electoral College. Each state's
Before I go, though,
laws
I'd like to
provide
put
that
out a
electors
quick
are
promo for
chosen by
Meet
a
Cute.
popular
It's a
vote.
one-woman comedy show written and
And on
performed by
December
BB
14th,
Lucio, who played
2020,
Laura in the I Am
electors
Sophie
met in
series.
all 50
Okay.
states and the
Fun.
District of Columbia to cast their votes. Joseph Biden won by a margin of 306 to 232. The election was over. Mr. Biden was the president-elect.
She's wanting to make it a movie and has a
Before the
fundraiser
Electoral
to
College
bring
met,
in the funds
Donald
to do
Trump
so.
and
If
his
you
allies filed dozens
are
of
willing
legal challenges
to
the election. But they
send me a
lost
blurb,
over
I'd be
and
happy to
over
tweet
again,
it.
including in front of multiple judges President Trump had nominated to the bench. In many of these cases, the judges were highly critical of the arguments put forward.
I don't have that much
explaining
reach
that
these
no
days,
genuine
but
evidence of widespread fraud had been presented. For example, a federal judge in Pennsylvania said, "This court has been presented with
Whatever I
strained
can
legal
do.
arguments without merit and speculative accusations unsupported by evidence. In the United States of America, this cannot
I
justify
can hardly be
the
bothered to
disenfranchisement
fucking
of a
listen
single
to
voter,
just like
let
the
alone all the voters of its 6th most populated state." On December 15th,
the evidence
after
that
the
it's
Electoral College certified
fraud,
the
you know,
outcome,
or that there was
the
no fraud.
Republican
Rather,
Majority Leader
I
in the
can
Senate
barely
acknowledged
be
Mr.
bothered to
Biden's
listen to that
victory.
anymore. The fact that we need to
Yesterday,
have a debate
electors
trial
met
about
in
what we
all
all
50
saw happen
states.
live on TV is probably the stupidest
So
part
as
of
of
all of
this
this.
morning,
Well,
our country has
I
officially
definitely feel that.
a
I
president-elect
definitely feel that.
and a vice president-elect. Many millions of us had hoped the presidential election
Born
would
in
yield
Rainbows. Thank you
different
so
result.
much for resub. How are
but our
ya?
system of government.
Good to see you.
has
Sorry, I had to take off my
processes
socks.
to
It's so
determine
fucking
who will
hot.
be sworn in on January the 20th. The Electoral College has spoken. So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden.
Even members of President Trump's
I am
cabinet
not
and
the
his White
one
House
to
staff
talk you off
understood
that
the
ledge. You should
significance of
do
his
it.
losses in the courts and the
Oh
absence
my
of
God,
evidence
that
of
would be
fraud.
so wonderful
They
if
also
you
respected
got
the
together with
constitutional
her.
certification by the Electoral College. Many of them told President Trump that it was time to concede the election to Mr. Biden. For example, then Secretary of Labor
Date
James
half the
Scalia,
price.
an accomplished lawyer and the son of late Justice Scalia, called
And then you'd
President
have
Trump
fun
in mid-December
competition,
and
too.
advised him to concede and accept the rulings of the courts.
See you later, Quinn.
And so I had to put a call into the president. I might have called on the 13th. We spoke, I believe, on the 14th, in which I conveyed to him that I thought that it was time for him to acknowledge that President Biden
Is there a
had
price on true love, though,
prevailed in
Quinn?
the
Is
election.
there?
But I communicated to the president that when that legal process is exhausted and when the electors have voted, that
Hydrate.
that's the
Don't
point
mind
at
if I
which that
do.
outcome
Thanks for
needs to
looking
be
out for me.
expected. I told him that I did believe, yes, that once those legal processes were run, if fraud had not been established that had affected the outcome of the election, then unfortunately, I believe that what had to be done was concede the outcome.
Rory, who's a good kitty.
As you've seen in
Who's
prior
the
hearings,
handsomest kitty
President Trump's
boy?
Justice Department,
Rory.
his White House staff, and his campaign
the
officials were
good boy?
repeatedly telling him that there was no
I like your
evidence
dog.
of fraud sufficient to
You
change
just
the
want
outcome.
affirmations? Oh, okay.
And
Who's
last
a
week,
good
we
moth?
conducted an
Who's a
8-hour
good
interview with
moth?
President Trump's
You're such a
White House
good
counsel,
moth.
Pat
What a
Cipollone.
handsome moth you
You'll
are.
see a number of excerpts of
I
that
like your
interview
dog.
today, and even more in our next hearing. Mr. Cipollone told us that he agreed
Unless you
with
think
the
taco is not a
testimony
sandwich,
that there
I
was
am
no
100%
evidence of
on team
fraud
taco is a
sufficient to overturn
sandwich,
the election.
loosely.
I want to start by asking if you agree.
Oh, fuck
Mr.
me.
Cipollone,
I
with the
already
conclusions
fucked
that
up.
Gordon, Bill Barr, of all of the individuals who evaluated those claims that there is
That actually
no
helped?
evidence
Good.
of election fraud sufficient to undermine the outcome in a particular state.
Yes, I agree with that.
And Mr. Cipollone also specifically testified that he believed that Donald Trump should have conceded.
Moth, do you
the
ever
election.
fuck around with wild makeup? I feel like you would rock the fuck out of like neon eyeshadow, like the bright pinks
Determination based on the investigations
and
that
like
you credited
oranges and
DOJ
shit,
and did you in your mind form the belief that the president
like
should
David Bowie
concede the
style.
election loss?
I'm gonna head out. I just dropped by to say hi and see how you're doing, but now my migraine is coming
Well,
back.
yeah,
No, I hope that you kick its
I was
ass.
the White House counsel.
Love you.
Some of
Feel
those
better.
decisions are political, so to the extent that, but if your question is, did I believe he should concede the election at a point in time? Yes.
Eyeshadow is a thing.
I believe.
I can't seem to master. Ah.
Leader McConnell
Hi,
went
Muffins.
before
How are
the
ya?
Senate
Good to see
in
you.
December, and basically said, the process is done. That would be in line with my thinking on these things.
As Attorney General Bill
God,
Barr
I feel like you would look so
testified,
fucking
December
sick. Not to
14th should
tell
have
you
been
what
the
you should
end
and
of the
shouldn't
matter.
wear.
December 14th was the day that the state certified
Severely
the
hooded
votes
eyes
and
plus
sent them
shaky
to
arms and ticks.
Congress.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
in my
Fair
view,
enough.
That was the end of the matter. I
That'd
didn't
probably
see,
be pretty tough.
you know,
I'm hanging in there,
thought
warm my
that,
muffins. I wish somebody would cool
this
my
would lead
muffins. I'm fucking
inexorably
a
to a new
sweat mess.
administration.
Mr.
A
Cipollone also
grease
testified
beast.
that the president's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, said he shared this view.
As early as that November 23rd meeting, we understand that there was discussion about the president possibly conceding the election. And specifically, we understand that Mark Meadows assured both you and Attorney General Barr that the president would eventually agree to a graceful exit. Do you remember Mr. Meadows making any such representation?
Are you saying as part of that meeting or separately? Again, without getting into that meeting, I would say that is a statement and a sentiment that I heard from Mark Meadows.
I see. And again, do you know if it was on November 23rd or some point?
Again, it was probably, around that time, and it was probably subsequent to that time. It wasn't a one-time statement.
Mr. Meadows has refused to testify, and the committee is in litigation with him. But many other White House officials shared the view that once the litigation ended and the Electoral College met, the election was over. And here's President Trump's former press secretary.
I wanted to clarify, Ms. McEnany, so back to my previous question, it was your view then, or was it your view that the efforts to overturn the election should have stopped once the litigation was complete?
In my view, upon the conclusion of litigation, was when I
might have to put my hair back, y'all. I really wanted to wear it down because I never do. But it's
And this is what
fucking
Ivanka
brutal
Trump
out
told
here,
us.
hey?
December 14th was the day on which the Electoral College met, when these electors around the country met and cast the electoral votes consistent
I'll try
with
to avoid it
the
for as long
popular
as
vote
possible,
in each
but
state.
I'm getting
and it was
sweaty.
obviously a public proceeding or a series of proceedings that President Biden had obtained the requisite number of electors.
No, you're not.
Was that an important day for you? Did that
You are
affect
not
sort of
being
your
rude.
planning or your realization as to whether or not there was going to be an end of this administration?
I think so. I think it was my sentiment probably prior as well.
Judd Deere was a White House deputy press secretary. This was his testimony about what he told President Trump.
Foxy, have you thought of cutting your hair shorter every
I
fucking
told him
day
that
of my life?
personal viewpoint was that the Electoral College had met.
But
which
it's
is
so
the
long that I feel like I would really regret it.
system that our
I feel like I would
country
really
is
regret it
set
if I
under
cut
to
my hair.
elect a president and vice president, and I believed at that point that the means for him to pursue litigation was probably closed.
And you recall what his response, if any, was?
He disagreed.
We've also seen this testimony from Attorney General Barr reflecting a view of the White House staff in late November 2020.
And then at that point I left. And as I walked out of the Oval Office, Jared was there with Dan Scavino, who ran the president's social media, and who I thought was
This
a
dude
reasonable
smokes so many
guy, I
cigars.
believe is a reasonable guy. And I said, how long is he going to carry on with this stolen election stuff? Where's this going to go? And by that time, Meadows had caught up with me and leaving the office, and caught up with me and said,
You have put up your
that,
hair before, right? Oh yeah, all the time. I almost always have my hair up.
he said, look, I think that he's becoming more realistic and knows that there's a limit to how far he can take this. And then Jared said, yeah, we're working on this. We're working on it.
Likewise, in this testimony, Cassidy Hutchinson, an aide to Mark Meadows, described her conversations with President Trump's Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, a former Republican congressman.
He had expressed to me that he was concerned that it could spiral out of control and potentially be dangerous, either for our democracy or the way that things were going for the 6th.
Of course, underlying all of this is the fundamental principle that the President of the United States cannot simply disregard the
Hey,
rulings
J-Rod,
of
how's it
state
going?
and federal courts, which are empowered to address specific election-related claims. The President cannot simply pretend that the courts had not ruled.
I love Pride and Prejudice.
By that time,
Oh, I
President
love Pride and
or his
Prejudice
associates
so
had brought-
much.
had lost
One of my
60 out
favorite love
61
stories of all
cases,
time.
That they had brought to challenge different aspects of the election in a number of states. They lost 60 out of 61 of those cases. So by the time we get to January 3rd, that's been clear.
I find it weird that old
I
men run the
assume,
country, young
Pat,
people
that
should have the
you
opportunity
would
to
agree
have
the
a trial
president
run.
is,
It's wild to me that the age cap on
obligated
that
to
shit
abide by
isn't
the
like
rulings before us.
60. I feel like 60 is even a little bit old. Like, if you are too old
and I
to get a
assume you
job,
Everybody is obligated to abide by rules.
like, I don't want to say
And
like
I
doing
assume you
physical
also
labor
would
or
agree the
anything like that. But if
president
you're
has a
too
particular
old to
obligation
get a
take care
job
that the laws
working
be
like
faithfully executed.
retail or
That is one of
something,
the
you should
president's
not be
obligations,
making rules for the country. If you
Yet
can't
President Trump
relate to
disregarded
people
these court rulings
that
and the counsel from his
are
closest
in the working
advisors
force,
and
you have
continued
no
his efforts to
business
cling to
controlling
power.
it.
In our prior hearings, you have heard considerable testimony about President Trump's attempts to corruptly pressure Vice President Pence to refuse to count electoral votes, to corrupt the Department of Justice, to pressure state officials
The
and
other
state
dude is Lenny,
legislatures,
Alec.
and to create and submit a series of fake electoral slates. Now, we will show you what other actions President Trump was taking between December 14th, 2020 and January 6th. I yield to the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Throughout our hearings,
talking
you've heard
tattoos?
how
I got a
President
bunch.
Trump made baseless claims that voting
Here's two of
machines were
them.
being manipulated by foreign powers in the 2020 election.
Here's
You've also
3
heard
and
Trump's
4.
Attorney General, Bill Barr, describe such claims as complete nonsense, which he told the president. Let's review that testimony.
I saw absolutely zero basis for the allegations, but they were made in such a sensational way that they obviously were influencing a lot of people, members of the public, that there was this systemic corruption in the system and that their votes didn't count and that these machines controlled by somebody else were actually determining it, which was
a
complete
switchblade
nonsense.
tattoo would suit you
And
very
it was
much.
being laid out there, and I told them that
Why
it
is
was,
that room set up like a
was,
shitty debate club?
crazy stuff, and they were wasting
I don't
their
know. They
time.
probably expected him to start
And,
fucking
it was doing
debating.
grave disservice to the country.
You bet you have more
We've
piercings
learned
than
that
me.
President
I
Trump's White House
just took out my
counsel
nipple piercing.
agreed with the Department of Justice
It just
about
it
this.
wouldn't fucking heal. It kept getting infected. It was
Barr
awful. I had it for so long.
December
But I have a
1st,
bunch in my
less than a
ears.
month.
I have a deceptive amount in my ears. I took a bunch of those out a long time ago though too. So I don't know.
Say that by December 1st, you could reach
1,
It's fair to
2,
say that I agree
3,
with Attorney General
4.
Barr. Attorney General Barr's conclusion
5.
on December 1st.
So I've got 5 in
Yes,
my
I did, and I
ears.
supported that conclusion.
6, 7,
However,
8. I
The
have
strong
8
rejection
right
of
now.
the Attorney General and the White House counsel of these claims did not stop the president from trying to press them in public. But that's not all he did. Indeed, as you'll see in this clip, the president asked Attorney General Bill Barr to have the Department of Justice
A skull
seize
wearing a
voting
party
machines
hat? That's
in the
amazing.
states.
My recollection is the president said something like, well, we could get to the bottom, some people say we could get to the bottom of this if the department seized the machines.
I
It
win.
was a typical,
It was
way
not a
of raising
competition.
and.
Not a comp.
I
You
said,
win too.
Absolutely not. There's no.
As long as you're
probable
happy
cause
with your
and
piercings,
we're not
you
gonna
win
seize
too.
any machines. And that was that. Yeah.
But this wasn't the end of the matter. On
I would
the
like
evening
some
of
more.
December 18th,
I feel like I'm
2020,
starting to get
Sidney
too
Powell,
old,
General
though.
Michael Flynn and others entered the White House for an unplanned meeting with the president, the meeting that would last multiple hours and become hot-blooded and contentious. The executive order behind me on the screen was drafted on December the 16th, just 2 days after the Electoral College vote, by several of the president's
Excuse me, so
outside
sorry.
advisors over a luncheon at the Trump International Hotel. As you can see here, this proposed order directs the Secretary of Defense to seize voting machines, quote, effective immediately. But it goes even further than that. Under the order, President Trump
You want it in the valley between your chest? I literally just felt a droplet of sweat drop down mine.
To seize machines and then charge people with crimes with all resources
I have
necessary
shorter
to
hair than
carry
me.
out her duties.
I bet everybody here
The
has
specific
shorter hair
plan
than me.
was to name
I would be
Sidney
shocked
Powell
if anybody
as
here
special
had longer
counsel.
hair than me.
The Trump lawyer who had spent the post-election period making outlandish claims about Venezuelan and Chinese interference in the election, among others. Here's what White House counsel Pat Cipollone had to say about Sidney Powell's qualifications to take on such expansive authority.
I don't think Sidney Powell would say that I thought it was a good idea to appoint her special counsel. I was vehemently opposed. I didn't think she should have been appointed to anything.
Sidney Powell told the president that these steps were justified because of her evidence of foreign interference in the 2020 election. However, as we've seen, Trump's allies had no such evidence and, of course, no legal authority for the federal government to seize state voting machines. Here's Mr. Cipollone again denouncing Sidney Powell's terrible idea.
There was a real question in my mind and a real concern, particularly after the Attorney General had reached a conclusion that there wasn't sufficient election fraud to change the outcome of the election. When other people kept suggesting that there was, the answer is, what is it? And at some point, you have to put up or shut up. That was my view.
Why was this
No tattoos or piercings.
a bad idea for the country?
Blank slate.
To have the federal government seize voting machines, it's a terrible idea for the country. That's not how we do things in the United States.
Make it a tattoo one of these days. Make sure it's one that you really want. Sit with the idea for at least 2 years before you get it. IMO.
There is a way to contest elections, that happens all the time. But the idea that
When you get an idea for a tattoo, wait 2 years. Maybe like commission artwork for it and see how you feel about it.
I don't understand why I would even have to tell you why that's a bad idea. It's terrible.
Because 2 of my tattoos, I
For all of
would
its
get
absurdity,
done
the
differently
December
if I
18th
could.
meeting was critically important because President Trump got to watch up close for several hours as his White House counsel and other White House lawyers destroyed the baseless factual claims and ridiculous legal arguments being offered by Sidney Powell, Mike Flynn, and others. President Trump now knew all these claims were nonsense, not just from his able White House lawyers, but also from his own Department of Justice officials and indeed his own campaign officials.
You got all your
As White
tattoos
House
picking
counsel
them
Pat
off a wall.
Cipollone
You got
told us,
all flash tattoos.
With respect
Ain't
to
nothing
the
wrong with a
election
cute little
violation,
flash tattoo. I just mean if you're going to get
these
like
were
big
clearly
work
those kind
done,
of claims.
right?
And people were open to them early on because people were making all sorts of claims. And the real question is,
I kind of want to get an Iowa
the
tattoo.
okay,
It wasn't just the Justice Department, the Trump campaign, and the Trump White House lawyers who knew it. Even Rudy Giuliani's own legal team admitted that they did not have any real evidence of fraud.
That's not to say
change
that
the
you
election
won't.
result.
Listen, I'm not going to say
email
that your
from
flash tattoos are bad.
Rudy
I'm never
Giuliani's
going to say
lead
that. I'm
investigator,
super stoked that
Attorney
you're happy
Clark,
with them.
On December 20th,
I just think
2020, to Chief of Staff
I would rather wait
Mark
the 2
Meadows.
years
Mr. Carrick did
and
not
know
mince
that it's
any
something
words.
that I'm going to love
We can do all
than
the
roll the
investigations
dice
we want
because
later,
I
but
have
if the
2
president plans on
tattoos
winning,
that
it's
I
the
don't love
legislators
as
that have to
much.
be moved,
You know
and
what I
this will
mean?
do just
And there's
that.
no
Mr. Carrick
fixing
wanted the
something as
president to
dark and
win.
solid as this.
What he didn't
You
say in
can't
this email
tell
was
how
what he
dark
would
and
later tell
solid
the
this
select
is, but it
committee
is
in a letter that
dark
his lawyer
and
wrote to us
solid.
in November. The letter said, quote, "It was impossible for Mr. Carrick and his team to determine conclusively
That's
whether
all
there
I'm
was
saying.
widespread
I think
fraud
it's
or
just
whether
general
that
good
widespread
advice.
fraud
It's
would have
not to
altered
say
the
that you
outcome
won't
of the
be happy
election."
with a
In
tattoo
other
that you
words,
don't sit
even
on for a
Rudy
while.
Giuliani's
This is
own
just how
legal
you
team
know that you will
knew
love it.
before January
Know what I
6th
mean?
that they hadn't collected enough actual evidence to support any of their stolen election claims. Here's what Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller told the committee about some of the so-called evidence of fraud.
They're all
that the
terrible tattoos,
campaign
and that's
had
why I love
seen
them
from
so
the
fucking
Giuliani
much. They're
team.
so stupid. I have a ghost getting scared
So
of
do you
a
know
human.
what the example
That's
of fraud,
adorable. I love
numbers,
that.
names, and supporting evidence was that you sent to Mo Brooks's office? And when I say you, I mean you or the campaign.
That's mean.
very, very general documents as far as say, for example, here are the handful of dead people in several different states.
J-Rod.
Here are
That's hilarious.
Explanations on a couple of the legal challenges, as far as saying that the rules were changed in an unconstitutional manner, but it was to say that it was thin is probably an understatement.
Here's how President Trump's deputy campaign manager described the evidence of fraud that the campaign had seen.
You never came to learn or understand that Mayor Giuliani had produced evidence of election fraud. Is that fair?
That's fair.
And here's testimony that we received from the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Rusty Bowers, about an exchange that he had with Rudy Giuliani after the election.
At some point, did one of them make a comment that they didn't have evidence, but they had a lot of theories?
Fuck yeah,
That was
Zombie
Mr.
Rackley.
Giuliani.
Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told people that he thought Trump should concede around the time the Electoral College certified the result. But nonetheless, he later worked to try to facilitate President Trump's wishes. Here's what Cassidy Hutchinson told us.
During this period, I perceived his goal with all of this to keep Trump in office.
Your foot says Goonies never say die with skull and cross. That's
very
amazing.
Seriously and deeply considered
That's amazing.
allegations of voter fraud.
Back when I was a baby nerd and I chatted in the XKCD
to overturn
IRC chat, my like sign off. You know how you can
start to
set
explore potential
your
more
like
extensively,
admin announce
which I think
and depart
theories.
blurbs. I
The
made
startling
mine say Goonies
conclusion
never
is
say
this.
/ quit.
Even an agreed upon complete
And then everybody
lack
was
of
like, that
evidence
makes you
could
not a
not
Goonie. And
stop
I was just like, I
President Trump.
just wanted to make the fun
Mark Meadows and
pun.
their
Okay.
allies from trying to overturn the results of a free and fair election. So let's return to that meeting at the White House on the evening of December 18th.
Also, I'm nowhere
that
near
night,
cool enough.
A group showed up at the White House,
Hey,
including Sidney
fucking
Powell,
Goonie.
retired Lieutenant General Michael
Baby
Flynn,
dogs,
and former Overstock.com CEO
Goonies
Patrick
is one of
Byrne.
my all-time faves.
After
Yeah,
gaining access
baby
to the
Corey
building from
Feldman,
junior White
baby
House
Sean
staffers, the
Austin,
group made their way to the Oval
absolutely
Office.
adorable.
They were
Love
able to
everything
speak with
about
the
it.
president
Data
by
is the
himself for
cutest
some
thing I've
time
ever seen in my
until White
life.
House officials learned of the meeting. What ensued was
If a little bit
heated
of a racist
and
portrayal,
profane
TBH.
clash between this group and President Trump's White House advisors, who traded personal insults, accusations of disloyalty to the president, and even challenges to physically fight. The meeting would last over 6 hours, beginning here in the Oval Office, moving around the West Wing, and
A
many
toaster
hours
on your
later,
foot with
ending
bath
up in the president's private residence.
That's
The Select
amazing.
Committee has spoken with 6 of the participants, as well as staffers who could hear the screaming from outside the Oval Office. What took place next is best told in their
I
own
also
words,
had a huge crush
as you will
on
see in this
Feldman
video.
growing up. Absolutely. I like weirdos, and he's kind of a weirdo, hey?
We get to see the president without an appointment.
Oh my God.
I had no idea.
My
In fact, you did get to see the president.
my
without an
little
appointment.
heart was a
We
flutter.
did. How much time did you have?
Goonies
alone
is
with
such
the
a comfort
president?
movie,
Not alone, you had
absolutely.
other people with you, but right from his aides before.
Absolutely.
the
Also,
crowd came
welcome, Pearlsy Merlsy. What a fun
probably no
name,
more
for
than
one.
10 or 15
And for
minutes.
two, thank you so much for coming by and checking us out. Chat room. Help me welcome Pearlsy Merlsy.
Call either from Molly.
You found a nice, cozy community to
So
settle
that was the
into.
first point that I had recognized.
We do hope you
Okay,
enjoy
there's
your
nobody in
stay.
there from the White House. Mark's gone. What's going on right now?
He's still such a weirdo. His story is really sad.
I saw General Flynn.
I didn't even know he had a
saw
Twitter.
Sidney Powell sitting there.
Sleep Ninja, I
was
very
not
much
happy to see
recommend
people
if you can bear it. It's really really fucking sad.
again, I
But
don't
I
think they
very
would
much
provide it.
recommend watching his
first of all,
interview with Steve-O on
The
Steve-O's
Overstock
podcast.
person, I've never known who this guy was. Actually, the first thing I did, I walked in.
That's
I looked at him
amazing,
and said,
J-Rod.
"Who are you?" And he told me.
Goonies gave you genuine nightmares? Oh no.
These people were providing the president with good advice.
I haven't seen the documentary either.
So
I haven't seen it either. I don't know if I could bear to watch him going through it. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a bunch of pictures of him being sad at parties and stuff.
He was very interested in hearing.
I don't know if I could handle it. It's the same reason I can't watch Marley and Me. The idea of watching Jennifer Aniston be heartbroken, it's just, there's no way. I can't hang.
Nobody else had bothered to inform him of.
I was asking, like, you claim the Democrats were
My
working
mom
with
and sister want me to
Hugo
get
Chavez,
matching tattoos with them, and I
Venezuelans,
don't know
whomever else.
how
At one
to
point,
get out of it. I don't
General
want the
Flynn
style
took
they
out
want permanently
a
on my body.
diagram
Also, they want a us
that
girls tattoo,
supposedly
and I'm not a
showed
girl.
by
Yeah,
heroes
that's
all over the world.
wild. I would definitely.
And
That feels like they're
I
just
figured
like
who was
full on
communicating
not
with
being
whom via the
supportive of who
machine,
you
and
are. I'm sorry to
some
hear
comment
that.
about like Nest thermostats being hooked up to the internet.
Your sister also
So
has
it's
the
been
Goonies tattoo
reported
with you.
that
That's
during this meeting, Ms.
wonderful.
Powell talked about Dominion voting machines and made various election fraud claims that involve foreign countries such as Venezuela, Iran, and China. Is that accurate?
Hi, Poetry Crow. How are
Was the
ya?
meeting tense?
Oh yeah, it was not a casual meeting.
Explain.
Your artist refuses to do matching tattoos
At
or
times
names.
There were people shouting at each other, hurling insults at each other.
That's their
Um,
prerogative.
It wasn't just sort of.
To be fair,
people
this
sitting
started
around on a
before I
couch,
came
like,
out. Fair.
chit-chatting.
But like, if they're still insisting on it, that's
Ms. Powell, the fact that she and the campaign had lost all of the 60
working on finding inspiration.
Yes, he raised that.
Do you like
And what was his
democracy?
I don't remember what she said. I don't think it was a good response.
Cipollone and Hirschman and whoever the other guy was showed nothing but contempt and disdain of the president.
Yeah, I remember the three of them were really sort of forcefully attacking me verbally. Derek, and we were pushing back, and we were asking one simple question as a general matter. Where is the evidence? So,
What response did you get when you asked Ms. Powell and her colleagues, where's the
a variety of responses.
Yeah, that's a
based on my
sticky
current
situation,
recollection,
Moth.
Including,
I don't envy it.
can't believe you would say something.
It's
you know,
nice
things
that
this,
like
what do you mean, where's the
they
evidence?
want
You should know
to
that.
do
Yeah,
something
things
that like
that, or
binds you all and all that,
a
but
disregard, I would say, a general disregard for the importance of actually backing up, say, with facts.
And then there was discussion of, well, we don't have it now, but we will have it or whatever.
I mean, if it had been me sitting in his chair, I would have fired all of them that night and had them escorted out of the building.
Derek and I both challenged what she was saying, and she says, well, the judges are corrupt. And I was like, everyone? Every single case that you've done in the country you guys lost, every one of them is corrupt? Even the ones we appointed? And I'm being nice. I was much more harsh to her.
So one of the other things that's been reported that was said during this meeting was that President Trump told White House lawyers, Mr. Hirschman and Mr. Cipollone, that they weren't offering him any solutions, but Ms. Powell and others were. So why not try what Ms. Powell and others were proposing? Do you remember anything along those lines being said by President Trump?
I do. That sounds right.
I think that it got to the point where the screaming was completely out there. I mean, you got people walk in, it was late at night, it had been a long day, and what they were proposing, I thought was nuts.
I'm gonna categorically describe it as
this fucking
you
piece
guys
of
are not
shit
tough enough.
loser.
Or maybe I put it another way, you're a bunch of pussies. Excuse the expression, but I'm almost certain the word was used.
Flynn screamed at me that I was a quitter and everything, kept on standing up and turning around and screaming at me. And then at a certain point,
It's
I
not
had
a
it
quitter
with
when it's
him.
the end.
So
Are you a quitter
then
if you
back.
turn off the movie at the credits? Are
Had to
you?
come over,
Fuck.
or sit your effing ass back down.
The president and the White House team went upstairs to the residence, but to the public part of the residence, you know, the big parlor where you can have meetings in the conference room.
Oval? They call that the yellow oval?
Yes, exactly, the yellow oval office. I always called it the upper. And I'm not exactly sure where the city
Motherfucker's so
went.
contrarian, he
I
can't
think
even
maybe
call
the
the Oval
Roosevelt
Office the Oval
And I
Office. Are
stayed
you
in the
fucking
cabinet
kidding
room, which
me?
is kind of cool. I really like that.
Like, it's
all by myself.
famous as
At
the
end of
Oval
day,
Office. Fuck
we
me,
landed
dude.
where we started the
I
meeting. It was from
detest
a
Rudy
structural
Giuliani. He is
standpoint,
a
which was
disgusting human being. And it's not
City
okay for me to
Powell
fucking say that
was
shit. It's
fighting,
not.
Mike Flynn was fighting. They were looking for avenues.
I'm only
that
human.
That would result in
Yes, we are, sis.
President Trump remaining President Trump for a second term.
The meeting finally ended after midnight. Here are text messages sent by Cassidy Hutchinson during and after the meeting. As you can see, Ms. Hutchinson reported that the meeting in the West Wing was unhinged. The meeting finally broke up after midnight during the early morning of December 19. Cassidy Hutchinson captured the moment of Mark Meadows escorting Rudy Giuliani off the White House grounds to, quote, make sure he didn't wander back into the mansion. Certain accounts of this meeting indicate that President Trump actually granted Ms. Powell's security clearance and appointed her to a somewhat ill-defined position of special counsel.
He asked Pat Cipollone if he had the authority to name me special counsel, and he said yes. And then he asked him if he had the authority to give me whatever security clearance I needed, and Pat Cipollone said yes. And then the president said, okay, you know, I'm naming her that, and I'm giving her security clearance. And then shortly before we left, and it totally blew up, was when Cipollone and or Hirschman and whoever the other young man was said, you can name her whatever you want to name her, and no one's going to pay any attention to it.
How did he respond?
I always
How
call
did the
my
president respond to that?
kitty cat a cat too.
Something like, you see what
Obviously,
I deal with,
that's
I deal
when
with
my
this all the
fucking
time.
socials pop up when I'm trying to show
Over
my
the ensuing
fucking
days,
tattoo.
no further steps were taken to appoint Sidney Powell, but there is some ambiguity about what the president actually said and did during the meeting. Here is how
It's one
Pat
of the
Cipollone
tattoos
described
that I
it.
would really fucking love to
I don't know what
change
her
a little bit.
understanding
Like
of
I wouldn't want it to be
whether she had
entirely
been
different. I
appointed,
just
what she had been appointed to.
would like it
Okay?
to be a little bit
In
better.
my view, she hadn't been appointed to anything.
She is. Yeah,
and
she is wearing
ultimately
red under
wasn't
the blue.
appointed to anything, because there had to be other steps taken. So that was my view when I left the meeting, but she may have a different view, and others may have a different view, and the president may have a different view.
Were any steps taken, including the president himself, telling her she'd been appointed?
Again, I'm not going to get into what the president said in the meeting. You know, my recollection is you're not appointed.
Good choice.
You're not appointed till
Yeah.
steps are taken to get the paperwork done. And when I left the meeting, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is
Yellow is a better
I'm not going to get into what the
pairing
president
for either of the other two primary colors. Hi, Aaron. How are you? Everybody love on Aaron.
Was it your understanding that Sidney Powell was still seeking an appointment, or that she was asserting that she had been appointed by the president at the December 18 meeting?
You know, now that you mentioned it, probably both. You know, in terms of, like, I think she may have been of the view that she had been appointed and was seeking to, you know, get that done.
I don't think you're being bitchy. Was I being bitchy?
As you listen to these clips,
Sorry.
remember that Ms. Powell, the person who President Trump tried to make special counsel,
Started making random
was
hand signs
ultimately
on live
sanctioned by
TV.
a
She
federal
had a criminal
court and
record for that
sued
shit,
by
but they didn't.
Dominion voting systems
Holy shit,
of
Alec, that's
defamation.
wild.
In her own defense to that lawsuit, Sidney Powell argued that, quote, no reasonable person would conclude that the statements were truly statements of fact. Not long after Sidney Powell, General Flynn, and Rudy Giuliani left the White House,
Me,
in the early
you,
hours of the
Eric, and
morning,
Josiah
President Trump
should
turned
get
away from both his outside
a
advisors'
beer
most
can with a
outlandish and
sombrero
unworkable
on for the
schemes
amigos.
and his White House counsel's advice to swallow hard and accept the reality of his loss. Instead, Donald Trump issued a tweet that would galvanize his followers, unleash a political firestorm, and change the course of our history as a country. Trump's purpose was to mobilize a crowd. And how do you mobilize a crowd in 2020? With millions of followers on Twitter, President Trump knew exactly how to do it. At 1:42 a.m. on December 19, 2020, shortly after the last
you know
participants
what?
left the
Considering
unhinged meeting,
skin
Trump
tones
sent
and
out the
shadows and
tweet
stuff, Moth, that
with
makes a lot of
his
sense.
explosive invitation. Trump repeated his big
I was just
lie
thinking in
and
terms of
claimed it was, quote,
contrasts, really.
statistically impossible
Like color theory stuff.
to have lost the 2020 election before calling for a
So I guess I was
big
being kind of
protest in
bitchy.
D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild. Trump supporters responded immediately. Women for America First, a pro-Trump organizing group, had previously applied for a rally permit for January 22nd and 23rd in Washington, D.C., several days after Joe Biden was to be inaugurated. But in the hours after the tweet, they moved their permit to January 6th, 2 weeks before. This
I did
rescheduling
not know
created
this.
the rally where Trump would eventually speak. The next day,
I did not know this.
Ali Alexander, leader of the Stop the Steal organization and a key mobilizer of Trump supporters, registered wildprotest.com, named after Trump's tweet. Wildprotest.com provided comprehensive information about numerous newly organized protest events in Washington. It included event times, places,
needed
speakers,
more time
and
to
details
order gallows.
on transportation.
Apparently
in
they
Washington,
fucking
D.C.
didn't, J-Rod.
Meanwhile, other key Trump supporters, including far-right media personalities, began promoting the wild protest on January 6th.
It's Saturday, December 19th. The year is 2020. And one of the most historic events in American history has just taken place. President Trump, in the early morning hours today, tweeted that he wants the American people to march on Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021.
And now Donald Trump is calling on his supporters to descend
God,
on
I
Washington, D.C.
fucking hate
January
Tim Pool.
6th.
He is now calling on we, the
He's
people,
such a
to
shitty
take action
little
and to show
loser.
our
What a
numbers.
rat weasel.
We're going to only be saved by millions
Like,
of
literally all he cares about is
moving
stirring the
to
pot. That's
Washington,
all he cares about. He doesn't care
occupying
about
the entire
democracy.
area,
He doesn't care
if-
about
if
rights. He
necessary,
cares about
storming
stirring the
right
fucking
into the
pot.
Capitol.
But half your
Now,
audience.
we know the rules of engagement. If you have enough people, you can push down any kind of a fence or a wall.
This could be Trump's last stand. And it's a time when
He
has
only cares about
specifically
fucking
called on his
creating drama.
supporters
He's
to
the
arrive
worst.
in
He,
DC.
like, sincerely,
That's
I hope
something
he
that
gets
may
help.
actually be the big push Trump supporters need to say, this is it. It's now or never.
You better understand something, son. You better understand something. Red wave, bitch. Red wave. This is going to be a red wedding going down January 6th.
On that day, Trump says, show up for a protest, it's gonna be wild. And based on what we've already seen from the previous events,
Thanks anyway,
I think Trump
Professor
is absolutely
Xavier.
correct.
Motherfucker, you better look
Thanks,
outside.
J-Rod.
You better look out January 6th. Kick that fucking door open. Look down the street. It's going to be a
Red Wedding, they're literally,
geeked
yes.
up armed
They
Americans.
literally did that
The
shit.
time for
Like,
games is over. The time for action is
also,
now.
yes, this is Gay
Where were
Frog
you
Man, by
when
the
history
way.
called? Where were you when you and your
His name
children's
is Alex
destiny
Jones, and he's
future was on the line?
batshit.
In that clip, you heard one of Trump's supporters predict
I'd be
a
in
red
them, but I'm gonna
wedding,
try to
which
get
is
a bunch
pop
of
culture
followers
reference to
first.
mass slaughter.
I'll follow you.
But the point is that Trump's call to Washington reverberated powerfully and pervasively online. The committee has interviewed a former Twitter employee who explained the effect that Trump had
Oh,
on the Twitter
no,
platform.
Alec, that's the
This employee
worst.
was on the team responsible for platform and
Can you
content
find a
moderation
different weed guy?
policies on Twitter throughout 2020 and 2021. The employee testified that Twitter considered adopting a stricter content moderation policy after President Trump told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by from the lectern at the September 29th presidential debate. But Twitter chose not to act. Here's the former employee whose voice has been obscured to protect their identity, discussing Trump's stand back and stand by comment and the effect it had.
My concern was that the former president, for seemingly the first time, was speaking directly to extremist organizations and giving them directives.
That's too bad, Alec.
We had not
I mean,
seen
it's
that
great that
sort
you're
of
getting good shit.
direct
I would
communication
never feel
before.
right giving my money to somebody who is going to
and
turn around and give it to Alex Jones, though.
concerned me.
So
No
just to
judge, by
clarify
the way.
further,
It's your prerogative.
You were worried, and others on Twitter were worried, that the president might use your platform to speak directly to folks who might be incited to violence?
I believe that Twitter relished in the knowledge that they were also the favorite and most used service of the former president, and enjoyed having that sort of power within the social media ecosystem.
If President Trump were anyone else, would it have taken until
don't
January
pay him?
2021 for him to be suspended?
Absolutely not.
Is she being investigated? As far as I know, she
Donald
isn't
Trump
being
or any other
investigated,
user
and
on
she
Twitter,
should
he would
be.
have been permanently suspended
I hope she
a very
is.
long time ago.
Despite these grave concerns, Trump remained on the platform.
If I were to try an
completely
edible for the
unchecked.
first time, what should I
Then
get and
came
how
the
do I
December
take
19
it?
tweet
Talk
and everything it inspired.
to the person at the store. The person at the
Indeed.
store is going to be able to ask you all the right questions, and they're going to know a lot more about it than anybody here will. Unless somebody here works at a weed store or is like a weed scientist. I would not solicit this advice on Twitch. I would solicit this advice from an expert.
And their logic and their reasoning behind why they were prepared to fight prior to December 19th. Again, it was vague. It was non-specific, but very clear that
I forgot to show you guys a thing I got.
were ready, willing, and able to take up arms. After this tweet on December 19th, again, it became clear not only were
It was
these
Prime Day the other day, and Bay got me a
ready and
gift.
willing,
Or I got this.
but
He got me
leader
several gifts. This
of
is one that I got
their
myself.
cause was asking
Really, the
them
gifts were stuff
to
for around the house. We got a
join
water
them
pick and a cat
in
fountain and
this
stuff like that.
cause and in fighting for this cause in DC on January 6th as well. I will also say what shocked me was the responses
Little
to these
shears,
tweets, right?
a bunch
these were
of
a lot of the locked and loaded
needles.
stand back, stand by. Those
Looks
tweets
like
were
these
in
ones are
response to Donald Trump
broken,
saying
or they're
things
like something
this,
that I don't
right? So there would
understand.
be a
Cable
response
holders,
that said,
stitch markers,
big protest in DC on January
tape.
6th, be there,
I don't
be
know what
wild,
this
and
is.
someone would respond and say, I'm locked and loaded and ready for
This is
civil
for
war."
measuring needles.
I very much believe
I have
Donald
no
Trump
idea what these
posting
little
this
hands are
tweet
for.
on
Oh, it's
December
to mark
19th
the
was
rows or the
essentially
stitches or something, I think. That's cute as
sticking
fuck.
a flag in
But the very
DC on
exciting
January
part,
6th for his supporters to come and rally.
And you were concerned about the potential for this
they're
gathering
cheap
becoming
and they won't do everything, but
Indeed, many of Trump's followers took to social media to declare that they were ready to answer Trump's
I'm
call.
so excited about it.
One user asked, is the 6th
Foxy,
D-Day?
do they have
Is
holes
that
in
why
the
Trump
side?
wants everyone there? Another asserted,
Not on the sides,
Trump
but in the
just
bottom
told us
they
all to
do.
come armed. Fucking A, this is happening.
See, you can kind of see right
The third
here.
took it even further. It will be wild.
No holes in the
means
sides though.
We need
I
volunteers
love
for the
these.
firing
I'm
squad.
not certain what they are, but
Jim Watkins, the owner
flat part of the arm, yes.
ACOON, the fringe online forum that
those
was
are
birthplace
point
of the
protectors. Oh, okay.
QAnon extremist movement, confirmed the importance.
Anyway,
of
I'm
Trump's
really
tweet.
jazzed about this.
Why did you first decide to go to DC for January 6th?
When the President of the United States announced that he was going to have a rally, then I bought ticket and went.
Watkins was at the Capitol on January 6th. Some who have since been indicted for their involvement in the attack on the Capitol also responded. One of them
So the
posted
stitches
on
don't
the
fall
19th,
off when you put the work
quote,
down. Okay, that's sick.
"Calling all patriots, be in Washington, D.C.
You're the
January
best,
6th.
Moth. Thank
This
you.
wasn't organized by any group. DJT has invited
Good night,
us,
Alec.
and
Have a
it's
good
going
one.
to be wild. Some of the online rhetoric turned openly homicidal and white nationalist, such as,
When will I
why
be
don't we
streaming
just
next
kill them?
Monday?
Every last
If it's-
Democrat,
if it's-
down to the last man,
If it's
woman, and
too
child.
oppressively
And
hot,
it's time
I
for the day
will.
of the rope.
We
White
won't be watching
revolution
anything,
is
but
the
I'll at
only
least crochet
solution.
with my phone
Others
downstairs,
realized
so
that
it will be
police
like
would be standing
a
in the
very
way of
weird,
their
like,
effort to
mobile
overturn
stream.
the election. So one wrote, "I'm ready to die for my beliefs. Are you ready to die, police?" Another wrote on the Donald.win, "Cops don't have standing if they're laying on the ground in a pool of their own blood."
These are the Blue
Donald
Lives
Godwin was
Matter
openly
people,
racist
by the
and
way.
anti-Semitic
Can we
forum.
just
The
can we
Select
just
Committee
acknowledge that,
deposed
please?
That site's founder, Jody Williams. He
Blue Lives
confirmed how
Matter
the
until they're
president's
not
tweet
part of our cult.
created a
Until they're not
laser-like
working in the
focus
interest of
on
my
the
cult.
date of January the 6th.
People have been talking about going to D.C. as soon as the election was over.
And do you recall whether or not the conversation around those dates centered on the 6th after the president's tweet?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, after it was announced that, he was going to be there on the 6th
Game
to
of
talk,
rock, paper, scissors.
yes, then anything else was kind of shut out, and it was just going to be on the 6th.
Okay, and that was pretty clearly reflected in the content on the site?
Yeah, sure.
On that site, many shared plans and violent threats. "Bring handcuffs and wait near the tunnels," wrote one user. A commenter replied, suggesting zip ties instead. One post encouraged others to come with body armor, knuckles, shields, bats, pepper spray, whatever it takes. All of those were used on the 6th. The post concluded, "Join your local Proud Boys chapter as well." The Donald.win featured discussions of the tunnels beneath the Capitol complex, suggestions for targeting members of Congress, and encouragement to attend this once-in-a-lifetime event. While Trump supporters grew more aggressive online, he continued to rile up his base on Twitter. He said there was overwhelming evidence that the election was the biggest scam in our nation's history. As you can see, the president continued to boost the event, tweeting about it more than a dozen times in the lead up to January the 6th. Mr. Chairman, I reserve.
The chair requests that those in the hearing room remain seated until the
Okay,
Capitol
if they're
Police have
taking a break, we're
escorted
taking a
members
break.
from the room.
Oh, time to hydrate first.
Pursuant
Don't
to
mind
the
if I do.
order
Thank you
of the committee
kindly.
of today, the chair declares the committee in recess for a period of approximately 10 minutes.
Everybody make sure that you're hydrating too. If you need a snack, go grab a snack. If you're able to, get up and touch your toes. Get that blood pumping. We will be back in 3 to 5 minutes. I just gotta go pee and give my big baboose a little kissy. So everybody hang tight. We will be back shortly. All right, howdy guys. Sorry about the wait there. I am just sitting back down. I had to go fill up my water. I didn't fill it all the way. I just filled it halfway, but just so that nobody can call me inaccurate. Okay, give me 2 seconds here. Sorry that the music didn't play. Went to pee and fill up water. Gross. You say gross. I say efficient.
The Chief of Homeland Security.
All right. Here we are. Sorry, one sec. All right. Fucking, my hair's all fucked up. Whatever. Okay, this should start again. I got it decently close. Brita filter for your pee? I feel like you would need like a lot more than just a Brita filter for your pee. Otherwise, you're just drinking filtered pee. You need like the space station has one. I actually legitimately want yeah, like some I legitimately want to get a water recycler in my house one day. I want to have like solar power.
Chair recognizes
and
gentleman from
all that
Maryland,
good
Mr.
stuff. I want
Raskin.
as close to a self-sufficient home as possible.
Trump's tweet drew tens of thousands of Americans to Washington to form the angry crowd that would be transformed on January
No, nobody
6th
said
into a
anything on
violent mob.
YouTube chat for a hot second is all.
Dr. Donnell Harvin, who was the Chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence for D.C., told the committee how his team saw Trump's December 19th tweet unite violent groups across the spectrum on the far right.
You have a creek in your yard and you want to pull from it? Yeah. The only thing that would worry me about that is salmonella, because natural bodies of water get salmonella so often. Like not being connected to a proper processing
these non-aligned groups were
unit
aligning.
or like plant or whatever would worry me, but like I would love to recycle as much water as possible.
Collaborating with white supremacy groups, collaborating with
drawing from the creek is such a good idea, though. You just definitely make sure that you have like all the things that you need to filter out like E. coli and salmonella and all that.
Blended ideology, and that's a very, very bad sign. Then when they were clearly across,
why you want to fight
not just
Snuggle?
across one platform, but across multiple platforms of these groups coordinating, not just like chatting, hey, how's it going? You know, what's the weather like where you're at? But like, what are you bringing? What are you wearing? You know, where do we meet up?
Okay.
Do you have plans for the Capitol? That's operational. That's like pre-operational intelligence, right? And that is something that's clearly alarming.
The Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers are two key groups that responded immediately to President Trump's call. The Proud Boys are a far-right street-fighting group that glorifies violence and white supremacy. The Oath Keepers are extremists who promote a wide range of conspiracy theories.
They made
and
your
sought to
sweater
act as a
yucky in your
private
brain?
paramilitary
Well, your
force for
sweater is
Donald
not
Trump.
yucky.
The Department of Justice has charged leaders of both groups
And I know
with
that it's
seditious
not easy to
conspiracy
just conquer your
overthrow
brain.
the government of the United States on January the 6th. Trump's December 19th tweet motivated these two extremist groups, which have historically not
But
worked
just so you
together
know,
to coordinate their activities.
it's just those thoughts that
December 19th at
make it
10:22 a.m.,
yucky,
just
right?
hours after
So
President Trump's tweet,
if there's a
Kelly
way that I
Meggs,
can
the
help you
head of the
conquer
Florida
that
Oath
thought,
Keepers,
I
declared
would love
an
to.
alliance among the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, and
It's
the
a
Florida Three
jack-o'-lantern, that's so
Percenters, another
fun.
militia group. He wrote, "We have decided to work together and shut this shit down." Phone records obtained by the Select Committee show that later that afternoon, Mr. Meggs called Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio, and they spoke for several minutes. The very next day, the Proud Boys got to work.
you just can't right now.
Proud
Oh, you
Boys
can't
launched
sleep.
an encrypted chat
I'm
called
sorry,
the
bud.
Ministry of Self-Defense. The committee obtained hundreds of these messages, which show strategic and tactical planning about January the 6th, including maps of Washington, D.C. that pinpoint the location of police. In the weeks leading up to the
Absolutely
attack,
wild.
leaders in both the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers worked with Trump allies. One such ally was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Trump's former national security advisor and one of the participants in the unhinged meeting at the White House on December 18th. He also had connections to the Oath
Like a
Keepers.
Doxy-themed one?
This photo from December 12th.
Or just like a
shows Flynn and
jack-o'-lantern
Patrick Byrne, another Trump ally who was present at
in
that December
general.
18th meeting, guarded by indicted
Because there's one,
Oath
you
Keeper
just used one.
Roberto Minuta. Another view of the scene shows Oath Keepers
stole
leader
someone's best
Stuart
mod this
Rhodes
week.
in the picture as well. Another central figure with ties to this network of extremist groups was Roger Stone, a political consultant and longtime
Both?
confidant
Oh,
of
you're
President
sweet.
Trump. He pardoned both Flynn and Stone in the weeks between the election on November 3rd and January 6th.
I fucking love
In the
pumpkins,
same time
dude.
frame, Stone communicated with both the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers regularly. The committee obtained encrypted content from a group
I would love to
chat-
make
from a
pumpkin
group chat
flour
called Friends of
to
Stone,
make, like, pumpkin
FOS,
pasta.
which included Stone,
That would be just
Rhodes,
so much
Tarrio,
healthier, all
and
the
Ali
fiber in
Alexander.
that.
The chat focused on various
so good.
pro-Trump events in
I'm
November
planning
and December
crimes and I got
of
the mod on
2020,
my side.
as well
Hell yeah.
as January 6th.
Power to the people.
As you can see here, Stuart Rhodes himself urged the Friends of Stone to have people go to their state capitals if they cannot make it to Washington for the first Million MAGA March on November 14th. These Friends of Roger Stone had a significant presence at multiple pro-Trump events after the election, including in Washington on December the 12th. On that day, Stuart Rhodes called for Donald Trump to invoke martial law, promising bloodshed if he did not.
He needs to know from you that you are with him, that he does not do it now while he is commander-in-chief. We're going to have to do it ourselves later in a much more desperate, much more bloody war. Let's get it on now while he is still the commander-in-chief. Hooah!
That night, the Proud Boys engaged in violence on the streets of Washington and hurled aggressive insults at the police.
You oath breakers! Do your fucking job! Give us 1 hour! 1 hour!
Jesus
Just the
Christ.
previous night, the co-host of InfoWars issued an ominous warning at a rally alongside Roger Stone and Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio. Encrypted chats obtained by the Select Committee show that Kelly Meggs, the indicted leader of the Florida Oath Keepers, spoke directly with Roger Stone about security on January 5th and 6th. In fact, on January 6th, Stone was guarded by 2 Oath Keepers who have since been criminally indicted for seditious conspiracy. One of them later pleaded guilty, and according to the Department of Justice, admitted that the Oath Keepers were ready to use, quote, lethal force if necessary against anyone who tried to remove President Trump from the White House, including the National Guard. As we've seen, the Proud Boys were also part of the Friends of Stone network. Stone's ties to the Proud Boys go back many years. He's even taken their so-called fraternity creed required for the first level of initiation to the group.
I couldn't get into Umbrella Academy. I should give it another try. I was trying to watch it at a pretty unhappy point in my life.
Hi, I'm Roger Stone.
Not to say that my life is all sunshine and rainbows now, but let's be honest. I don't love sunshine and rainbows. Not to say that my life is all storm
Kelly
clouds
Sorrell,
and
a lawyer who
and
assists the Oath Keepers and a
snowfall.
volunteer lawyer for the Trump campaign,
All storm clouds
explained
and
to the
dead
committee
leaves
how
now.
Roger Stone and other figures brought extremists of different stripes and views together.
Try again. It's so good. Okay, I'll give it another go. We just
You
started
mentioned
Trailer
that
Park Boys. We
Mr.
just
Stone
finished
wanted to start the Stop the Steal series of rallies.
Arrested Development.
Who did you consider
and started
the
Trailer
leader
Park Boys
of
because Josiah's
these
never
rallies?
actually
It
watched
sounds
through
like,
it.
From what you just said,
And I'm
it
really
was
enjoying it. I think that's
Mr.
one of the
Stone,
funniest
Mr.
shows
Jones,
ever
and
made.
Mr. Ali Alexander. Is that correct?
I fucking love
Those
the
are
Trailer
the
Park
ones that
Boys.
became like the center point for everything.
We'll learn more from Ms. Murphy about these individuals and their involvement in the days leading up to the violent attack on January 6th. We'll also hear how they were allowed to speak at a rally for President Trump the night before January 6th, even though organizers had expressed serious concerns about their violent and extremist rhetoric directly to Mark Meadows. And you'll hear testimony from White House aides who were with the president as he watched the crowd from the Oval Office and will testify about how excited he was for the following day. Let me note now that our investigation continues on these critical issues.
I get what you're saying, Bungie.
A small fraction of what we have found. I look forward to the public release of more of our findings later, Mr. Chairman, and I now yield
came
back.
across, no worries.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Murphy.
During our most recent hearing, the committee showed some evidence of what President Trump, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and other White House officials knew about the potential for violence on January 6th. And despite this information, they made no effort to cancel the rally, halt the march to the Capitol, or even to lower the temperature among President Trump's supporters. Katrina Pearson, one of the organizers of January 6th rally and a former campaign spokeswoman for President Trump, grew increasingly apprehensive after learning that multiple activists had been proposed as speakers for the January 6th rally. These included some of the people we discussed earlier in this hearing. Roger Stone, a longtime outside advisor to President Trump. Alex Jones, the founder of the conspiracy theory website InfoWars. And Ali Alexander, an activist known for his violent political rhetoric. On December 30th, Ms. Pearson exchanged
my VODs are broken, and I don't know why, and it's very, very infuriating. It's good to see you, though, Doll Lover. I'm very sorry that I've been inconsistent. It's been very hot here, and it's really hard for me to be in my office.
POTUS, and she remarked that the president likes the crazies. The committee asked Ms. Pearson about these messages, and this is what she said.
So when you said that he likes the crazies, were you talking about President Trump?
Yes, I was talking about President Trump. He loved people who viciously defended him in public.
But consistent in terms of the support for these people, at least with what the president likes, from what you could tell.
Yes, the people that would be very, very vicious in publicly defending him.
On January 2nd, Ms. Pearson's concerns about the potential rally speakers had grown serious enough that she reached out to Mr. Meadows directly. She wrote, "Good afternoon. Would you mind giving me a call regarding this January 6th event? Things have gotten crazy and I desperately need some direction, please." According to phone records obtained by the committee, Ms. Pearson received a phone call from Mr. Meadows 8 minutes later. Here is what Ms. Pearson said about that conversation.
So what specifically did you tell him, though, about other events?
Just that there were a bunch of entities coming in. Some were very suspect, but they're going to be on other stages, some on other days. A very, very brief overview of what was actually happening and why I raised the red flags.
And when you told him that people were very suspect, what did you tell him what you meant by that, or what did you convey to him about what you were the problems with these folks?
I think I even texted him some of my concerns, but I did briefly go over some of the concerns that I had raised to everybody with Alex Jones or Ali Alexander and some of the rhetoric that they were doing. I probably mentioned to him that they had already caused trouble at other capitals or at the previous event, the previous march that they did for protesting, and I just had a concern about it.
Ms. Pearson was especially concerned about Ali Alexander and Alex Jones because in November 2020, both men and some of their supporters had entered the Georgia state capitol to protest the results of the 2020 election. Ms. Pearson believed that she mentioned this to Mark Meadows on this January 2nd call. Notably, January 2nd is the same day on which, according to Cassidy Hutchinson, Mr. Meadows warned her of that things might get real bad on January 6th. After her January 2nd call with Mr. Meadows, Katrina Pearson sent an email to fellow rally organizers. She wrote, "POTUS expectations are to have something intimate at the Ellipse and call on everyone to march to the Capitol." President's own documents suggest that the president had
Oh,
decided
time to hydrate.
call on his supporters
Nice.
to go to the Capitol on January
Thanks for looking
6th,
out for me.
but that he chose
Appreciate
not
you.
to widely announce it until his speech on the ellipse that morning. The committee has obtained this draft, undated tweet from the National Archives. It includes a stamp stating, "President has seen." The draft tweet reads, "I will be making a big speech at 10 a.m. on January 6th at the Ellipse, south of the White House. Please arrive early. Massive crowds expected. March to the Capitol after. Stop the steal." Although this tweet was never sent, rally organizers were discussing and preparing for the march to the Capitol in the days leading up to January 6th. This is a January 4th text message from a rally organizer to Mike Lindell, the MyPillow CEO. The organizer says, "You know, this stays between us.
Oh,
We're having a
shit.
second stage at the Supreme
Between
Court
you and
again
America,
after
bitch.
the ellipse. POTUS is going to have us march there / the Capitol. It cannot get out about the second stage because people will try and set up another and sabotage it. It can also not get out about the march because I will be in trouble with the National Park Service and all the agencies. But POTUS is going to just call for it, quote, unexpectedly." The end of the message indicates that the president's plan to have his followers march to the Capitol was not being broadly discussed. And then on the morning of January 5th, Ali Alexander, whose firebrand style concerned Katrina Pearson, sent a similar text to a conservative journalist. Mr. Alexander said, "Tomorrow, ellipse, then U.S. Capitol. Trump is supposed to order us to the Capitol at the end of his speech, but we will see." President Trump did follow through on his plan, using his January 6th speech to tell his supporters to march to the Capitol on January 6th. The evidence confirms that this was
mistake of your
not a
motherfucking
spontaneous
life.
call to action,
Besides
but
even
rather
running for
was
president,
a deliberate
you little
strategy
piece of
decided
shit.
upon in advance by the president.
Meager little fucking loser. Ugh.
Another part of the president's strategy involves certain members of Congress who
You're just a
amplified his
weak,
unsupported
dumpy old
assertions
man
that
who
the election
thought that
had
he
been
could be
stolen.
a fucking politician.
In the weeks after the
Ugh.
election,
Ugh.
the White House coordinated
Sorry, I
closely
hate him
with
so
President Trump's
much.
allies in Congress to disseminate his false claims and to encourage members of the public to fight the outcome on January 6th. We know that the president met with various members to discuss January 6th well before the joint session. The president's private schedule for December 21st, 2020 shows a private meeting with Republican members of Congress. We know that Vice President Pence, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and Rudy Giuliani also attended that meeting. We obtained an email that was sent from Congressman Mo Brooks of Alabama to Mark Meadows setting up that meeting. The subject line is White House meeting December 21st regarding January 6th. In his email, Congressman Brooks explained that he had not asked anyone to join him in the, quote, January 6th effort. Because in his view, quote, only citizens can exert the necessary influence on senators and congressmen to join this fight against massive voter fraud and election theft. At this point, you may also recall testimony given in our earlier hearing by Acting Attorney General Richard Donahue, who said that the president asked the Department of Justice to, quote, just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressmen. According to White House visitor logs obtained by the committee, members of Congress present at the White House on December 21st included Congressman Brian Babin, Andy Biggs, Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, Paul Gosar, Andy Harris.
I also love
Jody
fall.
Hice, Jim Jordan.
Fall is the
and
best
Scott
time of the
Perry.
year.
Then Congresswoman-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene was also there. We heard testimony in an earlier hearing that a pardon was ultimately requested by Congressman Mo Brooks and other members of Congress who attended this meeting. We've asked witnesses what happened during the December 21st meeting, and we've learned that part of the discussion centered on the role of the vice president.
Your birthday
during
is
the
August
counting of
1st? What day of the
electoral
week is
votes.
it?
These members of Congress were discussing what would later be known as the Eastman theory, which was being pushed by attorney John
You are the
Eastman.
harbinger.
In one of our
love that
earlier
so
hearings, you
much.
heard in great detail that President
Mine's
Trump
smack
was trying to
dab
convince
in the
Vice
middle
President Pence
of, mine's
to do
in
something illegal. His
November.
White
Mine's
House counsel
November
confirmed
16th.
all of that in testimony last week.
See you later, Rana. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out.
Mr. Cipollone, upon that
those discussions with Mr. Philbin, with Greg Jacob. What was your assessment as to what the vice president could or could not do in the joint session?
What was my assessment about what he could or couldn't do?
Yes, your view of the issue.
My view is that the vice president didn't have the legal authority to do anything except what he did.
They've both told us, Mr. Philbin and Mr. Jacob, that they looked very closely at the Eastman memos, the Eastman theory, and thought that it had no basis.
It's a Monday.
It was not a strategy that the president
We'll probably
should
be
pursue.
here.
Sounds like that's consistent with your impression as well.
My impression would have been informed certainly by them.
Campaign senior advisor Jason Miller told us that Mr. Cipollone thought John Eastman's theories were nutty, something Mr. Cipollone wouldn't refute.
We've received testimony from various people about this. One was Jason Miller, who was a campaign, said that what was communicated to me was that Pat Cipollone thought the idea was nutty, and at one point confronted Eastman basically with the same sentiment.
I have Born on a Monday energy. That would make a really good t-shirt.
On January 4th, John Eastman went to the
I think
White
I was
House
born
to
on a
meet with the
Saturday.
president and vice president. Mr. Cipollone tried to
If anybody
participate
feels
in
like
this
looking
meeting,
up what
but
day
he was
of the
apparently
week
turned away.
November 16th, 1985 was.
You didn't go to the meeting in the Oval Office where Eastman met with the president and with the vice president. Do you remember why you didn't personally attend?
I did walk to that meeting, and I did go into the Oval Office with the idea of attending that meeting, and then I ultimately did not attend that meeting.
Why not?
The reasons for that are privilege.
Okay. Were you asked to not attend the meeting, or did you make a personal decision?
That's very funny, Dolliver.
Again, without getting into
Recall that Greg
Thanks,
Jacob,
Bungie.
the vice president's counsel, stated that Mr. Eastman acknowledged he
Came
would
into
lose
this world
9-0
partying.
if his legal theory were challenged in the Supreme
Let's
Court.
be real. Saturdays for
Mr.
me are
Cipollone
about
had
being
reviewed
lazy.
Mr. Eastman's legal theory
They
and
are not
expressed
about
his view
partying. Maybe
repeatedly
a long
that
time
the
ago,
vice
but
president was right. He even offered to take the blame for the vice president's position.
I thought that the vice president did not have the authority to do what was being suggested under a proper reading of the law. I conveyed that. Okay. I think I actually told somebody, in the vice president's, just blame me.
The hunger is very
I'm
bad
not a
today.
politician. I don't.
I might
but,
have a cigar
I just said,
later.
I'm a
Helps with
lawyer.
that a lot.
This is my legal opinion. But let me tell you this. Can I say a word about the vice president?
Please.
I think the vice president did the right thing. I think he did the courageous thing. I have a great deal of respect.
You just
for
quit
the
one
vice
of your
president
jobs so that
as
you can be lazy. Tired of working 6 to
very
7 days a
closely.
week, 51 hours.
I
Yeah,
think he
fuck that
understood my
shit.
opinion. I think he
We're
understood
not
my opinion
fucking born
afterwards as well.
to this miraculous
I think he did a
earth
great
to spend
service
all of our
to this
time at
country.
work.
And
You get your
I think
rest.
I suggested to
You
somebody that
earned
he
it.
should be given the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
You more than earned it.
Earlier this year, a federal district court judge concluded that President Trump and Mr. Eastman, relying on Mr. Eastman's theory, more likely than not violated multiple federal criminal laws in their pressure campaign against the vice president. Also recall earlier in this hearing, we saw that Rudy Giuliani's team did not have actual evidence of fraud sufficient to change the result of the election.
For
That's
those of you that like
important
enjoy
because as
working
January
a
6th
billion hours
approached,
a week,
the
obviously
Republican
do
members of the
you. If
House
that's
and
what
Senate
makes you
were looking
happy,
for
fuck yeah,
reason
do
to
it. Do it
object
up.
to the electors.
Get yours, but
no real evidence was ever given to them. And we know
never,
that Republican
ever
members
feel
of the
guilty
House
about
received a
needing more
memorandum
time to
from
yourself.
the chairwoman of the House
Never
Republican
feel
Caucus
guilty
in
about
the
that.
days before January 6th, explaining in detail the many constitutional and legal problems with objections and describing the principal judicial rulings dismissing the claims of widespread fraud. But their plan to object to the certification of the election
Oh
on January 6th
no,
went
Dolliver!
forward
I hear that that's awful.
The next
A
day,
friend of
on
mine, a
January
close
5th,
friend of mine,
the day
has
before
that,
the attack
and
on the
he
Capitol,
complains about it.
tens of thousands
Well, I was gonna
of
say he
people
complains
converged
about.
on
He's not like
Washington.
just a whiny
While
douchebag, but
certain
like
close associates of
he's
President
talked
Trump
at length about
privately
how much it
expressed
fucking
concerns
sucks.
about what would occur on January 6th.
I love
Other
that
members of
emote
the
pairing,
president's inner circle
Moth.
spoke
That
with
shit is
great
so fun.
anticipation about the events to come. The committee has learned
I
from the
love when
White House
people
phone
post
logs
the fart
that
slide
the
with
president
the.
spoke to
Oh, you
Steve
don't
Bannon,
like
his
it?
close
I love
advisor,
it.
At least twice on January 5th.
It does.
The first
suck.
conversation
oh, no.
they had
Oh,
lasted
you're talking
30
about
minutes.
plantar fasciitis.
Listen to
I don't
what
know how to
Mr. Bannon
pronounce
said
that.
that day after the first call he had with the president.
if it wasn't
all
obvious.
hell is going to break loose tomorrow. It's all converging, and now we're on, as they say, the point of attack, right? The point of attack tomorrow. I'll tell you this. It's not going to happen like you think it's going to happen, okay? It's going to be quite extraordinarily different. And all I can say is strap in.
From those same phone logs, we know that the president and Mr. Bannon spoke again on the phone that evening.
My feet always hurt really, really bad when I have to be on them for a really long time.
January 6th, supporters of President
I remember
Trump
there were
gathered in
times
Washington, D.C.
when
at
I
another
was
rally.
bartending and
This
serving
rally
and
was
like
held at
working
Freedom
double
Plaza,
shifts and
which is
stuff.
located near
Sometimes
the
if it was
White
really
House,
busy and I
it
had to
featured
spend a
some
lot
of
of
the
time like
speakers who
pivoting
Katrina
behind the
Pearson and
bar or
others
whatever,
deemed too extreme to share
sometimes
the
my
stage
feet,
with the
I would get
president
home and my feet would hurt so bad
And as
that it
this
would
rally
hurt
was
even
underway,
worse to be off
the
of them.
president asked members of his
You know what
staff
I
to come
mean?
to the Oval Office.
Like they hurt
Let's
being
hear
on
from the
them,
White
but when
House
you sit
aides
down
who
for a
were in
little
the
bit of
Oval
relief,
Office
they just start throbbing. It's
I was in
so
the
brutal.
office, in the Oval Office, and he had asked me to open the door so that he could hear. I guess there was a concert or a rap or something going on.
Did he say anything other than just open the door?
He made a comment. I don't remember specifically what he said, but there's a lot of energy.
When we walked in, the staff was kind of standing up and assembled along the wall, and the president was at the desk, and Dan Scavino was on the couch, and the president was dictating a tweet that he wanted Scavino to send out. Then the president started talking about the rally the next day. He had
A
the
bath
door
with
of
that
the
sauce of
Oval
Epsom
open
salts.
to the Rose Garden.
Yeah.
Because you could hear
Just foot baths in
crowd
general are
already
really, really
assembled
nice.
outside on the ellipse, and they were
I would love to have a
playing
nice
music,
foot bath. I should have looked on
and,
Prime Day.
It was so loud that you could feel it shaking in the Oval. He was in a very good mood, and I say that because he had not been in a good mood for weeks leading up to that, and then it seemed like he was in a fantastic mood that evening.
He asked if members of Congress would be with him tomorrow.
And what do you understand by meaning voting in his favor as opposed to physically with him or anything like that?
Yeah, and I took that to mean not voting to certify the election.
Then he did look to the
So I'll
staff
ever
and
go
ask
to a
for,
pharmacy and see if they
ideas
have one
of
of those
how
machines that you can stand on. It's a little expensive. It's like
that we
$70
could
bucks.
make the rhinos
But if
do the
you
right thing.
if you find one of those machines that you can stand on, it like measures the pressure
No one spoke up
on your
initially, 'cause
feet,
I think everyone was trying
right?
to process
And
what
then it like
that
gives
meant by that.
you
The
a custom
president was
one
making notes then,
that
talking
is specifically
then
for your foot.
about we should go up to the Capitol. What's the best route to go to the Capitol?
If you mix baking soda, shea butter, and like a box of cheap tea, it's very relaxing and smells so
What was his
good.
response?
I would be a little bit worried
He
about
acknowledged
bathing
that
in
and-
baking
and
soda.
Said we've had a lot, something along those lines, and
I don't even know why. I like scientifically, I have no idea why that
fairly quickly
worries
moved
me.
to
Maybe I'm just being a fuddy-duddy.
how fired up the crowd was going to be.
And what did he say about it?
Just that they were fired up, they were angry, they feel like the election has been stolen, that the election was rigged.
Did he give you any indication of how he knew that the crowd was fired up or angry?
He continued to reference being able to hear them outside.
Walgreens is where I got mine.
Through the open door of the
I
Oval
love it. They were
Office, the president
amazing.
could
I
hear the sound
loved
of the
them. They
crowd
helped
and the
so
music
much.
At the rally at the Freedom Plaza. And these are some of the things that they were saying there at the plaza. Just
They ended up
blocks from
getting
where the
ruined
president
when
sat that
the
evening,
roommate that I had at the
excited for
time,
next day.
his dog ate them.
This is
She didn't-
nothing less than an
She didn't
epic
eat them, but
struggle
she
for
ruined
the
them
future
by
of this
chewing them
country
up.
Between dark and light, between the godly and the godless, between good and evil.
If all else fails, though, what
And we will win this
Moth,
fight,
I would listen to
or
Moth because
America would
Moth
step
knows,
off into
has the
1,000
experience.
years of darkness.
Tomorrow, trust me, the American people that are standing on the soil that we are standing on tonight, and they're going to be standing on this soil tomorrow, this is soil that we have fought over, fought for, and we will fight for in the future. The members of Congress, the members of the House of Representatives, the members of the United States Senate.
Ma, thank you so much. That was so nice.
Feeling weak tonight.
Thank you.
Those of you that don't have the moral fiber in your body, get some tonight, because tomorrow we the people are going to be here, and we want you to know that we will not stand for a lie. We will not stand for a lie.
I want them to know that 1776 is always an option. These degenerates in the deep state are going to give us what we want, or we are going to shut this country down.
Really good job doing that, you piece of fucking shit.
1776.
That's really nice, Ma. Thank you so much.
1776.
At 5:05 p.m., as the Freedom Plaza rally was underway just blocks away, President Trump
Best
tweeted,
crimes.
Washington is being inundated with people who don't want to see an election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats. Our country has had enough. They won't take it anymore. To the crowds gathering in D.C., he added, "We hear you and love you from the Oval Office." The committee has learned that on January 5th, there were serious concerns at Twitter about the anticipated violence the next day. Listen to what the Twitter witness told us about their desperate efforts to get Twitter to do something.
What was your gut feeling on the night of January 5th?
I believe
Am I in the
sent
Discord?
a Slack message to someone that said something along
Not.
the
I won't be
lines
until
of,
after the stream tonight.
when people are shooting each other tomorrow, I will try and rest.
Is
in the
Dolliver? Are
knowledge
you in
that
the
we
Discord?
tried. And so I went to, I don't know that I slept that night, to be honest with you. I was on pins and needles because, again, for months I had been begging and anticipating and attempting to raise the reality that if we made no intervention into what I saw occurring, people were going to die. And on January 5th, I realized no intervention was coming. And even as hard as I had tried to create one or implement one, there was nothing, and we were at the whims and the mercy of a violent crowd that was locked and loaded.
And just for the record, this was content that was echoing statements by the former president, but also Proud Boys and other known violent extremist groups.
Yeah.
By all means, Moth, take over.
There were also concerns among members of Congress. We have a recently released recording of a conversation that took place among Republican members in the U.S. Capitol on the eve of January 6th. This is Republican Congresswoman Debbie Lesko from Arizona, who led some of the unfounded objections to the election.
I love when y'all are helpful with one another. It's my favorite
I also
thing.
asked leadership to come up with a safety plan for members. I'm actually very concerned about this because we have who knows how many hundreds of thousands of people coming here. We have Antifa. We also have, quite honestly, Trump supporters who actually believe that we are going to overturn the election.
Absolutely.
And when that doesn't happen, most likely will not happen, they are going to go nuts.
That same evening, as President Trump listened to the rally from the Oval Office, he was also working on his speech to be delivered the next day. And based on documents we've received from the National Archives, including multiple drafts of the president's speech, as well as from witness testimony, we understand how that speech devolved into a call to action and a call to fight. One of the first edits President Trump made to his speech was to incorporate his 5:05 p.m. tweet, revising his speech to say, "All of us are here today, do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore." He also added, "Together, we will stop the steal." President Trump's edits continued into the morning of January 6th. And as you can see from the president's daily diary here, the president spoke to his chief speechwriter, Stephen Miller, for over 25 minutes that morning. Following his call with Mr. Miller, President Trump inserted for the first time a line in his speech that said, quote, "And we will see whether Mike Pence enters history
Time for
as
the
a
buttonhole,
truly great
gang.
and courageous leader. All he has to do is refer the illegally submitted electoral votes back to the states that were given false and fraudulent information where they want to recertify."
Oh no,
No prior
Dollover.
version
Well,
of this speech had
I
referenced
imagine
Vice
the ones
President
that
Pence or his
Moth
role
is
during the
trying to
joint
show you
session
in
on
Discord
January 6th.
probably
These
are
last-minute
pretty
edits
good.
by President Trump to his speech were part of the president's
They're doing their
pressure
best
campaign
to,
against his own vice president. But not everyone wanted these lines regarding the vice president included in the president's speech, including White House lawyer Eric Hirschman.
To help you out there?
Did you ever speak to anybody in the White House at the time about this disagreement between the president and the vice president, other than the president, based on the objection from your counsel?
Maybe had a brief conversation about it with Eric Hirschman.
Tell me about that. What do you remember him saying to you about this disagreement?
I just remember him saying that that he had a I don't want to get this wrong. Sort of something to the effect of thinking that it would be counterproductive. I think he thought to discuss the matter publicly.
So it came up in the context of editing the president's speech on January the 6th?
It just came from the conversation where Eric knew it was in the speech, and so he had a sidebar with me about it.
And so the speechwriters took that advice and removed the lines about Vice President Pence. And later that morning at 11:20 a.m., President Trump had a phone call with the vice president. And as the committee detailed in an earlier hearing, that phone call was, by all accounts, tense and heated. During this call, the vice president told the president that he would not attempt to change the outcome of the election. In response, the president called the vice president of the United States a wimp and other derogatory words. As you can see in this email, after Vice President Pence told President Trump
New
that he
slur
would
unlocked.
not unilaterally deliver him a second term in office, the speechwriters were directed to reinsert the Mike Pence lines. Here is how one of the speechwriters described President Trump's last-minute change to the speech.
And as I recall,
I have
there
to
was a very
take a gander at my pattern here. Give me 1 second,
a
gang.
tough sentence about the vice president that was added.
President Trump wanted to use his speech to attack Vice President Pence in front of a crowd of thousands of angry supporters who had been led to believe the election was stolen.
Yeah, okay.
When President Trump arrived at the ellipse to deliver his speech, he was still worked up from his call with Vice President Pence. And although Ivanka Trump would not say so, her chief of staff gave the committee some insight into the president's frustration.
It's been reported that you ultimately decided to attend the rally because you hoped that you would calm the president and keep the event on an even keel. Is that accurate?
No, I don't know who said that or where that came from.
What did she share with you about why it was concerning that her father was upset or agitated after that call with Vice President Pence in relation to the Ellipse rally? Why did that matter? Why did he have to be calmed down, I should say?
Well, she shared that he had called the vice president a not an expletive word. I think that bothered her, and I think she could tell based on the conversations and what was going on in the office that he was angry and upset, and people were providing misinformation. And she felt like she might be able to help calm this situation down, at least before he went on to stage.
The president did go on stage, and then he gave the speech that he wanted to give. It included the formal changes he had requested the night before and in that morning, but also many important last-minute ad-lib changes. A single scripted reference in the speech to Mike Pence became 8. A single scripted reference to rally-goers marching to the Capitol became 4, with President Trump ad-libbing that he would be joining the protesters at the Capitol. Added throughout his speech were references to fighting and the need for people to have courage and to be strong. The word peacefully was in the staff-written script and used only once. Here are some of these ad-lib changes that the president made to his speech.
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do. And I hope he doesn't listen to the rhinos and the stupid people that he's listening to. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. But we're going to try and give our Republicans,
disgusting,
the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
White House counsel Pat Cipollone and his deputy did not attend the speech, and they were concerned that the statements in the speech about the election were false. In fact, the message that President Trump delivered that day was built on a foundation of lies. He lied to his supporters that the election was stolen. He stoked their anger. He called for them to fight for him. He directed them to the U.S. Capitol. He told them he would join them, and his supporters believed him, and many headed towards the Capitol. As a result, people died. People were injured. Many of his supporters' lives will never be the same. President
People's
Trump's former
lives were
campaign manager,
ruined.
Brad
Yeah, and
Parscale,
ended.
recognized
Like,
the impact of the
Jesus.
speech immediately. And this is what he said on January 6th in excerpts from
I don't think you're
text
an idiot.
messages to Katrina Pearson. Mr. Parscale said, quote, "This is about Trump pushing for uncertainty in our country, a sitting president asking for civil war." And then when he said, "This week I feel guilty for helping him win," Katrina
no.
Pearson responded, "You did what you felt right at the time, and therefore it was right." Mr. Parscale added, "Yeah, but a woman is dead. And yeah, if I was Trump and I knew my rhetoric killed someone." When Ms. Pearson replied, "It wasn't the rhetoric," Mr. Parscale said, "Katrina, yes, it was." Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. We're joined today by Mr. Jason Van Tavenhove.
This is where it
and
starts
Mr.
to get
Stephen
fucking
Ayers.
wild, gang.
Mr. Tavenhove is an artist and journalist. He's a former spokesman of the Oath Keepers and a former close associate of Elmer Stewart Rhodes, the founder and president of the Oath Keepers, who has been charged with seditious conspiracy in relation to the Capitol attack.
You know what? Before we do this, we're gonna take a quick break because I gotta pee because we've been hydrating our streamer today. I'll be right back. I am going to figure out how much longer stream is gonna be. It might be over pretty soon. So give me just a minute to figure that out, and we will be right back. Sorry about that. I couldn't for the life of me fucking unmute my mic. We're going to keep going until the end of the hearing. So we've got some time ahead of us here. Less than an hour, but still some time. Like 40 minutes are left. So really quick, I'm going to take a minute and shill. I want to, while everybody is still here, quickly thank my patrons. I have to read the list now because we have so many. So thank you so much to Theo, to J-Rod, to Dragon Rana, to Big Wolf Paws, to Quinn Kenobi, to Laura Cody, and to Katie Bailey. I appreciate you so much. Thank you very much. I also, if anybody is interested, please no pressure. Don't ever put yourself out. Make sure that you're taken care of first. But I do have a throne wish list that I have finally turned community funding on. I didn't realize that that was a thing that I had to turn on. So if you feel like kicking $5 towards a gift, that would be sick. No pressure whatsoever, but it's stuff that would be used for the stream. It's none of that stuff is just like for me to just have. So if you like these streams, this is a really good way to support. I've thrown the link in there. I also want to really quick just push out my Twitter and my Discord, twitter.com/ZER0DOXY and discord.gg/fartslide. You heard that correctly. It is fart slide. That's pretty much all the shilling that I have to do. Also, go watch Dungeon Dad. Please do. He makes amazing Dungeons and Dragons content, the likes of which you have never seen. Like, nobody that does Dungeons and Dragons content is on his level. And I'm not just saying that because he's my life partner. Like, he legitimately is a genius. His content is I'm sure that there are chatters in here that can testify. His shit is fire. Anyway, if I could just have 3 readies in chat, we will go ahead and get back to getting. I don't have a P.O. box. And we just cannot give our address out. We just can't. I apologize. I super appreciate your thoughtfulness. But with two content creators living in this house, it just isn't, it's not, we've agreed that no matter who it is, we can't just give it out. I really appreciate that though. That's so fucking sweet. 69 butts circle. Okay, we've got all the readies. We're gonna get going here.
Against a violent group.
That is not the correct pattern, and I don't know why it keeps doing that. The other one is correct. The DoxyBot one is correct.
January 6th. He marched to the Capitol on the president's orders. He pleaded guilty.
I don't have a P.O. box because I'm not. I have to be a permanent resident before I can get one. I love your new emote. It's a thoughtful butt.
Last month, disorderly and disruptive conduct at the Capitol. Mr. Ayers,
you guys
who
are the
no
best.
longer supports President
I love hanging
Trump,
out with Doxy
came
Chat.
forward
Doxy Chat, best chat.
voluntarily to share his story as a warning. I will now swear in our witnesses. The witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the
DoxyBot has the correct pattern in it, but Nightbot doesn't.
Thank you.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, that is correct. Is the timer one a different command? It must be. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with it. I'll have to ping Kool-Aid to fix it because I don't know how.
Today we've discussed how
Worst it
President
being the
Trump
worst,
summoned
indeed.
an angry mob of supporters to Washington, D.C.
Is Josiah unable to get one either for y'all to share? I don't think that he has much use for one.
We're fortunate enough to be joined by 2 witnesses.
I don't know. I'll talk to him about it, but I don't think that he has much use for
Both
one at all.
hardcore violent extremists like the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and average Trump supporters swept up in the fervor.
It's also a
of
little
the
bit
day.
scary now that
Mr. Van Taten
what happened to
Hove,
fucking
can you help us understand who the
Amaranthe.
Oath Keepers are?
I can, thank you. My time with the Oath Keepers began back at Bundy Ranch, that first standoff, when I went to cover them as an independent.
Oh, was it
journalist.
Valkyrie?
I then subsequently
I don't know how to say her name.
covered 2 more standoffs, the Sugar Pine Mine standoff and the White Hope Mine standoff. It was at that time
thought
that
it was
I was
Amaranth.
offered a job.
The dude at the
as
airport,
national media
yeah.
director and an associate editor for the webpage.
What- Am I thinking of the same
So I spent
person?
2
I'm gonna
years
sorry, I'm gonna
with
back
the
this up a
Keepers,
little bit,
and
because I
can
haven't been
tell
paying
you-
attention. But I'm thinking of the person that camped out at their PO box. That's why it's like a little bit scary, but I probably will do it anyway once I am a permanent resident. What happened to Valkyrie?
Keepers and Proud Boys and average Trump supporters swept up in the fervor of the day.
I have no idea.
Mr. Van
Sleep
Taten
Ninja.
Hove, can you help us understand who the Oath Keepers are?
It's good to see you, by the way.
I can, thank you. My time with the Oath Keepers began
I don't
back
know how long you've been here. I feel
at
bad.
Bundy Ranch, that first standoff.
Came to where she films and stayed at
I
the
went to
airport
cover
for
them
like a
as an
week waiting for
independent
her. Yeah.
journalist.
Ugh.
I then subsequently covered 2 more standoffs, the Sugar Pine Mine standoff and the White Hope Mine standoff. It was at that time that I was offered a job as national media director and an associate editor for the webpage. So I spent a few years with the Oath Keepers, and I can tell you that they may not like to call themselves a militia, but they are. They're a violent militia, and they are largely Stewart Rhodes.
Why are they wasting money on making fucking name
rather than
flags for
try
these
to
people?
use
I hope
words,
that's
I
just
think
paper.
The best illustration for what the Oath Keepers are happened January 6th. when
Maybe
we
it's
saw
Pokimane.
that
I feel so
stacked
bad for
military
Pokimane.
formation
I feel her
going up the
fans
stairs of
are
our Capitol.
wild.
I saw radicalization.
I feel so
that
bad for her.
started with
Welcome
my
back, Gimmick
beginning of
Gamer.
my time with them, and continued over a period of time as the member base and who it was that Stuart Rhodes was courting drifted further and further right into the alt-right world, into white nationalists, and even straight up racists. And it came to a point where I could no longer continue to work for them. But the Oath Keepers are a dangerous militia that is in large part fed by the ego and drive of Stewart Rhodes, who at times seemed to see himself as this paramilitary leader. I think that drove a lot of it. So in my opinion, the Oath Keepers are...
Is Stewart Rhodes in jail? Does anybody know?
Well, thank you very much. You talked a little bit about that danger. So what is the Oath Keepers' vision for America, and why should Americans be concerned about it?
No.
I think we saw a glimpse of what the vision of the Oath Keepers
Time to
is
frog.
on January 6th.
Time to frog a lot.
It doesn't necessarily include the rule of law.
But this is going to be perfect. I
Doesn't
don't care.
necessarily
I'm
include,
not giving her a half-assed project.
It includes violence. It includes trying to
At the
get
end of
their
my rows,
way
I need to
through
remember to
lies,
check
through
my
deceit,
shells because that's where I
through
mess up the
intimidation,
most. I should
and through
just
the
check to make sure
perpetration
that all of
violence.
these are good.
The swaying of people who may not know better through lies and rhetoric and propaganda that can get swept up in these moments.
Yeah, these are good.
And I'll admit I was swept up at one point.
What
as
is
well,
it?
too.
So this hole right here is supposed to have another
if that answers the
Well, it does,
double crochet
and, you
after
talk
this
about
chain
being
2
swept up.
coming back down this
So
way.
at what
and it doesn't.
point
I
did you
accidentally
break
skipped that
with the Oath
that double crochet.
There came a point There were many red flags, and I probably should have broke with them much earlier than
Welcome
I
back,
did.
Moth.
But the straw that broke the camel's back really came when I walked into a grocery store. We were living up in the very remote town of Eureka, Montana, and there was a group of core members of the group of the Oath Keepers and some associates, and they were having a conversation at that public area.
It is the worst. I'm very sad, but I would rather do this than give her anything less than the best.
I just could not abide.
Because she's the best.
You know, we were not.
And she deserves it.
We were not wealthy people at all. We were barely surviving, and it didn't matter. I went home to my wife, my kids, and I told them that I've got to walk away at this point. I don't know how we're going to survive or where we're going to go or what we're going to do, but I just can no longer continue, and put in my resignation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ayers, there were many people in the crowd that day, January 6th, including you, who were not part of an extremist group. I'd like to start by having you tell the American people a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us about your life before January 6th?
Yeah, basically nothing but a family man and a working man. Worked at the company, a cabinet company up in Northeast Ohio for
He is in jail still.
years.
Good.
You know, family's my
Good.
life. You know, I was a supervisor there, so that took up a lot of my other, a lot of my free time. Other than that, with my family, camping, playing basketball, playing games with my son.
Just what any ordinary American citizen, family man would do.
Yep, exactly.
So this committee has reviewed thousands of hours of surveillance footage from January 6th. During this review, we identified you entering the Capitol as we see in this video. Mr. Ayers, why did you decide to come to Washington on January 6th?
For me personally, I was, pretty hardcore into the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I followed, President Trump, on all of the websites, he basically put out, come to Stop the Steal rally, and I felt like I needed to be down here.
So you basically learned about the rally on social media.
We need to talk about the singer on your list? Oh
at some
no,
point
what's wrong with
made a
it?
decision to come to Washington.
Yep. I had some friends I found out were coming down. I just hopped on with them right at the tail end when I found out, and came down here with them.
Thank you very much.
You can
the
make
chair
fan
recognizes the Vice
suggestions,
Chair,
hey?
Ms. Cheney of Wyoming. for any
There's a
questions
spot
she
where
may
you
have.
can suggest
Thank you very much, Mr.
products
Chairman.
for me to
Mr.
put on the
Ayers,
list.
When you entered the Capitol last year, did you believe that the election had been stolen?
And you can leave a little note and be like,
that
this is
time,
why this is better than
everything
what
that I
you
was
have,
seeing
etc.
online,
It's fairly likely going to be shitty as
believe
fuck. Most
that
of the modern ones have
exactly
plastic insides and
the
they
case.
don't work.
And when you heard from President Trump that the election was stolen, how did that make you feel?
Oh, I was, I
Yeah,
was
if you can
very
find a
upset.
link to an alternative
As
that's
were
better,
most of his supporters.
by all means, let me know.
That's basically what got me to come down
It's
here.
$40 cheaper at Joanne.
And do you
Good to
still
know.
believe the election was stolen?
Not so much now.
I don't think
I got
Joanne
away from all
delivers
the social
to
media.
Canada, though.
When January 6th happened, basically deleted it all. I started doing my own research and everything, and for me, for something like that to be that, to actually
See you
for
later,
that to
Dolliver.
actually
Have a good
take
one.
place, it's too big. There's no way you can keep something like that quiet.
That's the thing, though,
something
Moth,
like
is that I can't afford to get it, and that's why it's on the
All
throne
the-
list.
all the
You know what I
lawsuits
mean?
Being shot down one after another. That was mainly.
I can't justify spending that money.
Well, and I think that's very important. And we've also talked about today and in previous hearings the extent to which the president himself was told that the election hadn't been stolen by his Justice Department, by his White House counsel, by his campaign. Would it have made a difference to you to know
I
that
would
President
love to
Trump
have one of
himself
those
had no evidence
old
of widespread
wood
fraud?
and wrought iron
Oh,
machines.
definitely.
I would
You know,
fucking
who knows? I
would
may not have
love
come
to
down
have one of
here
those. Oh,
then,
I
you
just
know.
messed up a little bit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Young lady yields back. Chair recognizes gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, earlier today,
That's
we showed
okay,
how
Gimmick Gamer. Have a
Donald
good
Trump's
one.
December
Thanks for hanging out.
19th tweet summoned both extremist groups as well as rank-and-file supporters of President Trump to come to Washington, D.C., average Americans. He told them to, quote, be there, we'll be wild, and they came. We showed how how President Trump repeatedly told them, fight, 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 and they marched to the Capitol. Mr. Ayers, you were in that crowd at the rally, and then the crowd that marched to the Capitol. When you arrived on the ellipse that morning, were you planning on going to the Capitol?
No, we didn't actually plan to
I'm
go
so
down
sorry,
there.
Moss.
You know, we went basically to see the Stop the
Rose
Steal
Defense
rally,
got that
and
trial
was
pushed
it.
to late September
So
from
why'd you decide
July.
to march to the Capitol?
That's, I mean, I feel like that's fair.
Well, basically, you know, the president
I feel like that's very fair. Even
you know,
criminals
got
deserve a
everybody
speedy
riled up,
trial, right?
told everybody head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
After the president's speech, as you're marching down to the Capitol, how did you feel?
Ugh.
It's
Oliver, I'm sorry you got kicked out.
I'm angry, you know, after everything that was
New tick dropped last night. Oh
basically
no.
said in the speech, you know, a lot of the stuff he said, he already put out in tweets. I've already seen it and heard it before. So I mean, I was already worked up, and so were most of the people there.
So as you started marching, did you think there was still a chance the election would be overturned?
Yeah, at that time I did, you know, because everybody was kind of like in the hope that, you know, Vice President Pence was not going to certify the election. You know, also the whole time on our way down there, kept hearing
Everybody
about
has
this
to
big
go home at some
reveal.
point, totally.
I remember us talking about, and we kind of thought maybe that was it. So that hope was there.
Did you think that the president?
Oh
would be marching
no,
with
a
you?
hickey.
Yeah.
At least
I
they
think
go away
everybody
pretty
thought he was gonna
quick.
be coming
Only a
down,
couple days typically,
he
hey?
said in his speech, you know,
Unless they
kinda
were like
he's gonna
really
be there
bad
with
ones.
us. So I mean, I think I believed it.
I understand. We know that you illegally
Oh,
entered the
that was
Capitol
nice
that
of them.
afternoon and then left the Capitol area later on. What made you decide to leave?
Basically, when President Trump put his tweet out, we literally left right after that come out. You know, to me, if he would have done that earlier in the day, 1:30, you know, we wouldn't be in this. Maybe we wouldn't be in this bad of a situation or something.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Mr.
Have you been
Chairman.
streaming, Moss?
Mr. Van Tatenhoff, in the run-up to January 6th, Stuart Rhodes publicly implored President Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act, the 1807 law that allows the president to call up militias to put down a rebellion against the United States. And I want to get your thoughts about this in the context of your prior relationship with Stuart Rhodes. I understand that you had conversations with Rhodes about the Insurrection Act. Why was he so fixated on that, and what did he think it would enable the Oath Keepers to do?
Well, I think it gave him a sense of legitimacy, that it was a path forward to move forward with his goals and agendas. I think we need to quit mincing words and just talk about truths. And what it was going to be was an armed revolution. I mean, people died that day. Law enforcement officers died this day. There was a gallows set up in front of the Capitol.
Weekends mostly?
This could have
Okay,
been
I'm
the
like never at my
spark that
PC
started
on
a new
weekends.
Civil War, and no one would have won there. That would
That's
have been
awesome,
good for
though.
no one. He was always looking for ways to legitimize what he was doing, whether by wrapping it in the trappings of it's not a militia, it's a community preparedness team. We're not a militia, we're an educational outreach group. It's a veteran support group. But again, we've got to stop with this dishonesty and the mincing of words and just call things for what they are. You know, he's a militia leader. He had these grand visions of being a paramilitary leader, and the Insurrection Act would have given him a path forward with that. You know, the fact that the president was
Night sleep, Ninja.
communicating, whether directly or indirectly, messaging, you know, kind of that gave him the nod. And all I can do is thank the gods that things did not go any worse that day.
What did the Oath Keepers see in President Trump?
They saw a path forward that would have legitimacy. They saw opportunity, I think, in my opinion, to
That's very fun,
become
Dolliver.
a paramilitary force, you know?
Last week, the Department of Justice indicated that it has evidence of the Oath Keepers bringing not just firearms, but explosives to Washington ahead of January 6th. And the committee's also learned that Stewart Rhodes stopped to buy weapons on his way to Washington and shipped roughly $7,000 worth of tactical gear to a January 6th rally planner in Virginia before the attack. Did you ever hear Rhodes discuss committing violence against elected political leaders?
Yeah, I mean, that went back from the very beginning of my tenure. One of the first assignments that he brought to me wanting me to do as more of a graphic artist function was to create a deck of cards. You may remember back to the conflict in the Middle East, where our own military created a deck of cards, which was a who's who of kind of the key players on the other side that they wanted to take out. And Stewart was very intrigued by that notion and influenced by it, I think. And he wanted me to create a deck of cards that would include different politicians, judges, including up to Hillary Clinton as the Queen of Hearts. This is a project that I refused to do. But from the very start, we saw that. There was always the push for military training, including there were courses in that community that went over explosives training. So, yeah, this all falls in line.
Mr. Van Tatenhoff, you say in your
I just
very
swallowed
thoughtful
so much
written
air.
testimony that
Ugh.
we received today that
Drink much?
You fear what the next election cycle will bring.
Ugh, uncomfortable.
You also say
Oh,
that
no.
we have been exceedingly lucky in that we have not seen more bloodshed so far. I wonder if you would elaborate on those two statements.
I
find
as
that
far as the
crochet
look
stuff
goes,
makes
we've had the
amazing
potential
Christmas
from Bundy
presents.
Ranch on. I mean, being boots
People
on the
love
ground
getting
at these-
crocheted shit for
these
Christmas.
standoffs, and they were standoffs where there were firearms pointed across lines at federal law enforcement agencies. You know, whatever it may be with that particular
I
standoff.
do inhale my
But-
own saliva and choke on it sometimes. That happens to me.
I do. I think
You hate yarning
we've
for
gotten
others? Oh.
exceedingly lucky that more bloodshed did not happen because the potential has been there.
I
from
like
the
it.
start. And we got very lucky that the loss of life was, and as tragic as it is, that we saw on January 6th, the potential was so much more. Again, all we have to look at is the iconic images of that day with the gallows set up for Mike Pence, for the Vice President of the United States. You know, and I do fear for this next election cycle because who knows what that might bring. If a president that's willing to try to
Oh, Bungie Fox, I'm so
instill
sorry.
and encourage to whip up a civil war amongst his followers using lies and deceit and snake oil, and regardless of the human impact, what else is he going to do if he gets elected again? All bets are off at that point. And that's a scary notion. I have 3 daughters. I have a granddaughter. And I fear for the
It is
world
miserable.
that they
It
will
hurts.
inherit if we do not start holding these people to account.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Van Tatenhoff. Mr. Ayers, I first want to ask you about what finally caused you to leave on January the 6th. We know that the medieval style combat with our police, the occupation of the building. This was going on for several hours until the president issued at 4:17 a tweet, I believe, that included a video telling people to go home. Did you see that, and did that have any effect on what you were doing?
Well, when we were there, as soon as that come out, everybody started talking about it, and it seemed like it started to disperse, some of the crowd. Obviously, once we got back to the hotel room, we seen that it was still going on, but it definitely dispersed a lot of the crowd.
And did you leave at that point?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we left.
So, in other words, that was the key moment when you decided to leave, when President Trump told people to go home.
Yeah, yep. We left right when that come out.
You were not a member of.
Have y'all ever choked on air? That fucking sucks. Yo, I've been having this thing where my esophagus has been like
on January 6th,
collapsing on itself when I breathe in sometimes. Every once in a while, it always kickstarts a panic attack because it's so uncomfortable and I'm like, what's happening? Am I dying? But like, you know how when you accidentally get a crease in a straw and you like try to suck something up through it and it collapses in on itself and the flow is really impeded. It feels like that's what like my airway is doing, and it blows.
I'm interested in hearing about what's happened to you since the events of January 6th. You told the vice chair that you no longer believe Trump's big lie about the election, but that's what brought you originally to Washington. Looking back on it now, how do you reflect on the role that you played in the crowd that day, and what is going on in your life?
Basically, I lost my job. Since this all happened, pretty much sold my house.
You play the tuba, that's sick. I just almost
so
did it again.
Everything that happened.
I just almost did it fucking again.
Thank God. A lot of them did get dismissed because I was just holding my phone, but at the same time, I was there.
That's rad as fuck that you play tuba.
It changed my life, not for the good, definitely not for the, for the better.
Well,
all I could say.
President Trump is still promoting the big lie about the election. How does that make you feel?
It makes me mad because I was hanging on every word he was saying. Everything he was putting out, I was following it. I mean, if I was doing it, hundreds of thousands or millions of other people are doing it, or maybe even still doing it. It's like he just said about that. You got people still following and doing that. Who knows what the next election could come out? They could end up being down the same path we are right now. I mean, just don't know.
Mr. Ayers, I see that your wife has joined you today, and welcome to Washington. We know this has been very difficult on you both and your family. What lessons, finally, do you want the American people to learn from the way you and your family have suffered as a result of these events?
Biggest thing is I consider myself a family man, and I love my country. I don't think any one man is bigger than either one of those. I think that's what needs to be taken. People dive into the politics, and for me, I felt like I had...
No, it's not love. It's hysteria. It's obsession. It's the furthest thing from love.
The biggest thing for me is take the blinders off, make sure you step back and see what's going on before it's too late.
It's letting your feelings...
I want to thank you for your testimony and for appearing, both of you, today.
Impede.
And Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
The way other people live their lives.
Gentleman yields back.
In a negative way.
I want to thank our witnesses for joining us
But
today.
why? Like, how does that shit happen?
Members of the select committee may have
hold
additional
on.
questions for
I'm going
today's
to
witnesses.
pause.
And we ask that you respond expeditiously.
I think this is the end of it, but the way that it happens is these people were lonely. They didn't agree with the people that were around them, and they were ostracized for having feelings and questions that at first were probably valid, right? And then they found community in these other people that were spinning these fucking fan fictions. This QAnon bullshit, right? JFK is coming back and other just wild shit. They found community, and that community gave them purpose. And feeling like you have purpose is a wild motivator, especially coming off of feeling ostracized and cast aside. That's how this happens. I'm not saying it's shitty liberals who did this. I'm saying it's a greedy man who took advantage of a widening divide in the upper and lower class and was able to somehow convince the lower class that it was other lower class people's fault. Anyway.
In writing to those questions. Without objections, members will be
Yeah, it's because
permitted
people
10
love you,
business
J-Rod.
days to submit statements for the record, including opening remarks and additional questions for the witnesses. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, for a closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When Donald Trump sent out his tweet, he became the first president ever to call for a crowd to descend on the capital city to block the constitutional transfer of power. He set off an explosive chain reaction among his followers, but no one mobilized more quickly than the dangerous extremists that we've looked at today. Seizing upon his invitation to fight, they assembled their followers for an insurrectionary showdown against Congress and the vice president. On January 6th, Trump knew the crowd was angry. He knew the crowd was armed. He sent them to the Capitol anyway. You might imagine that our founders would have been shocked to learn that an American president would one day come to embrace and excuse political violence against our own institutions, or knowingly send an armed mob to attack the Capitol to usurp the will of the people. But you know, Mr. Chairman, the founders were pretty wise about certain things, and at the start of the Republic, they actually warned everyone about Donald Trump. Not by name, of course, but in the course of advising about the certain prospect that ambitious politicians would try to mobilize violent mobs to tear down our own institutions in service of their insatiable
Anonymous.
ambitions.
Thank
In the very
you.
first Federalist paper,
I appreciate
Alexander Hamilton
you.
observed that
That's
history
so
teaches
nice.
that opportunistic politicians who desire to rule at all costs will begin first as demagogues, pandering to the angry and malignant passions of the crowd, but then end up as tyrants, trampling the freedoms and the rights of the people.
That
violent
bee emo
insurrection to
always
overturn
makes me
elections is
hear
not
the
an
Mario
abstract thing, as we've
wow
heard.
that
Hundreds
everybody's
of
using
people
like
were
on
bloodied,
TikTok and
injured,
YouTube
wounded
these
in the
days.
process, including more than
It
150
is such a
police
cute bee.
officers, some of them sitting in this room today. I want to give you an update on one officer who was badly wounded in the attack.
I think it's
And is
Mario.
well known to the members
I don't know
of this
if it's
committee
Mario now that
because
I
he
think about it.
testified before us last year.
I always just assumed.
Sergeant Aquilino Gunnell is an Army veteran who spent a year on active combat duty in the Iraq War and then 16 years
I wish they'd bring back
on
the fucking
Capitol
bees,
Force.
period.
Nothing he ever saw in combat in Iraq, he has said, prepared him for the insurrection where he was savagely beaten, punched, pushed, kicked, shoved, stomped, and sprayed with chemical irritants along with other officers by members of a mob carrying hammers, knives, batons, and police shields taken by force and wielding the American flag against police officers as a dangerous weapon. Last month, on June 28th, Sergeant Gunnell's team of doctors told him that permanent injuries he has suffered to his left shoulder and right foot now make it impossible for him to continue as a police officer. He must leave policing for good and figure out the rest of his life. Sergeant Gunnell, we wish you and your family all the best. We are here for you. We salute you for your valor, your eloquence, and your beautiful commitment to America.
Okay, he's still
I
a
wonder
cop.
what former President Trump would say to someone like Sergeant Gunnell, who must now go about remaking his life. I wonder
Or
if he
still
could even
was,
understand what
rather.
motivates a patriot like Sergeant Gonell. In his inaugural address, Trump introduced one commanding image: American carnage. Although that turn of phrase explained little about our country before he took office, it turned out to be an excellent prophecy of what his rage would come to visit on our people. Mr. Ayers just described how the trust he placed in President Trump as a camp follower derailed his life and nearly wrecked his reputation and his family. A few weeks ago, we heard Shay Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, Speaker Rusty Bowers from Arizona, and Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger describe how hate-filled intimidation campaigns by Trump and his followers made them prisoners in their homes and drove their stress and anxiety to soaring new heights when they refused to do Trump's bidding. American carnage, that's Donald Trump's true legacy. His desire to overthrow the people's election and seize the presidency interrupted the counting of electoral college votes for the first time in American history, nearly toppled the constitutional order, and brutalized hundreds and hundreds of people. The Watergate break-in was like a Cub Scout meeting compared to this assault on our people and our institutions. Mr. Chairman, these hearings have been significant for us and for millions of Americans, and our hearing next week will be a profound moment of reckoning for America. But the crucial thing is the next step. What this committee,
Somebody here did
what
have moth
all of us
emotes,
will do
Mothman
to
emotes.
fortify our democracy against coups,
They also
political
had a
violence,
Mothman-themed
and
channel
campaigns to
name.
steal
It was
elections
awesome.
away from the people.
I don't remember
Unlike
their
Mr.
exact
Ayers
name,
and
though.
Mr. Van
I
Tatenhove,
feel guilty about that,
people
but
who have
I'm awful
recovered
at just like remembering
and
things. If they came in, I'd
evolved
be
from
like,
their
you're the one with
descent
the emotes,
into
I
the hell
think.
of fanaticism. Donald Trump has only expanded his big lie
Was it cryptid? It
to
might
cover
have been.
January 6th itself. He asserts the insurrection was the real election, and the election was the real insurrection. He says his mob greeted our police officers on January 6th with hugs and kisses. He threatens to take one of America's two major political parties with him down the road to authoritarianism, and it is Abraham Lincoln's party, no less. The political scientists tell us that authoritarian parties have two essential features in common in history and around the world. They do not accept the results of democratic elections when they lose, and they embrace political violence as legitimate. And the problem of incitement to political violence has only grown more serious in the internet age, as we have just heard. But this is not the problem of one party, it is the problem of the whole country now. American democracy,
What are your
Mr.
goth?
Chairman,
Okay, one moment.
is a precious inheritance.
Thank you for looking out for
something
me.
rare in the history of the world and even on Earth today. Constitutional democracy is the silver frame, as Lincoln put it, upon which the golden apple of freedom
Oh my
rests.
God, Steve,
We
thank
need
you
to
so
defend both our
much.
democracy
That's
and
so
our freedom with
nice.
everything we have, and declare that this American
Also,
carnage
hi, how are
ends
you?
here and now, in a world of
Thank you
resurgent
very much. I
authoritarianism,
appreciate you.
racism, and
How you doing?
anti-Semitism. Let's all hang tough for American democracy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Without
Good to
objection, the
see
chair
you.
recognizes the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Murphy, for a closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At one of our first hearings, Chairman Thompson explained that the members of this committee would not spend much time talking about ourselves. Rather, we would let the evidence play the leading role. And the chairman was right, because this isn't about promoting ourselves as individuals, it's about protecting the country we love. And it's about preserving what actually makes America great: the rule of law, free and fair elections, and the peaceful transfer of power from one elected leader to the next. But if I may say a word about myself and why I'm proud to serve on this committee. I'm the only member of this committee who was not blessed to be born an American. I was born in Vietnam after the Vietnam War, and my family and I fled
am
a communist
obsessed with her
government,
voice.
were rescued by the US Navy, and were given sanctuary in America. My patriotism is rooted in my gratitude for America's grace and generosity. I love this country. On January 6th, 4 decades after my family fled a place where political power was seized through violence, I was in the United States Capitol, fleeing my fellow Americans. Members of the angry mob had been lied to by a president and the other powerful people who tried to convince them without evidence that the election had been stolen from them. Some of them then tried to use physical violence to overturn the outcome of a free and fair election. Our committee's overriding objective is to fight fiction with facts, to create a full account for the American people and for the historical record, to tell the truth of what happened and why it happened, to make recommendations so it never happens again, to defend our democracy. To me, there's nothing more patriotic than that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for a closing statement.
Can I be really angry
Thank
for a
you very
moment, by
much,
all
Mr.
means?
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me put what you have
Anger
seen
is an
today
emotion that
in a broader
human beings
context.
have.
At the very outset of our hearings, we described several elements of President Trump's multi-part plan to overturn the 2020 election. Our
If you're
hearings have
entitled
now
to nothing
covered
else,
all
you're
but one of
absolutely
those
entitled
elements.
to your emotions.
An organized campaign to persuade millions of Americans of a falsehood that the 2020 election was stolen by widespread fraud. A corrupt effort to pressure
I know
Vice
these dick
President
fucks were lied
Pence
to, but I still hate
refuse
them
to count electoral votes.
so very, very deeply.
An effort to corrupt the U.S. Department of Justice. Efforts to pressure state election officials
can
and
understand
legislators to change state
the
election
temptation
results.
for that.
A scheme to create and submit
I hate the
fake
liars
electoral
more than the
slates
lied
for
to.
multiple states. And
Steve,
today,
thank you so much.
You saw how President Trump summoned
Appreciate
a mob
you.
to Washington for January 6th, and then knowing that that mob was armed,
Steve out there taking
directed
care of
that
5
mob to the United
strangers
States
randomly before taking care
Every
of
one of
himself.
these elements of the planning for
Hi, Brad.
January 6th
How are you?
is an independently serious matter. They were all ultimately focused on overturning the election, and they all have one other thing in common. Donald Trump participated in each substantially and personally. He oversaw or directed the activity of those involved. Next week, we will return to January 6th
I specifically
itself.
hate
As we have shown
Joe
in prior
Rogan.
hearings, Donald Trump and his legal
I
team,
specifically
led by
hate
Rudy
him
Giuliani,
for being
were working on
for
January
taking
6th to
his
delay or
platform
halt Congress's
and making it a
counting of electoral
pavestone
votes. The mob
from
attacking and invading
centrists
the
to
Capitol
the
on that
alt-right.
afternoon of
It's
January 6th
infuriating.
was achieving that result.
He's just the
for
dumbest
multiple
motherfucker
hours, Donald
and the
Trump
most
refused to
irresponsible
intervene to
asshole with
stop
his
it.
platform.
He would not instruct the
Bit of
mob
a
to
spoon
leave or
deficit. I'm
condemn the
sorry.
violence.
Yeah, I feel
He would
that.
not order them to
I'm sure
evacuate
that
the
resonates
Capitol
with
and
everybody in
disperse.
here right now.
The many
Every time I
pleas
watch
for
coverage
help
of the
from Congress
insurrection,
did
it
no
forces
good.
hearing a weird noise
The
out my
staff
window and looking to
insisted
see a
that
fucking
President
tank
Trump
back
call
in my
off the
brain.
attack. He would not.
What?
Here are a few of the many things you will hear next week from Mr. Cipollone.
That's wild that there was a tank. Wild.
I was, and others were as well.
Was it necessary for you to continue to push for a statement directing people to leave all the way through that period of time until it was ultimately issued after?
I felt it was my obligation to continue to push for that, and others felt it was their obligation as well.
Would it have been possible at any moment for the president to walk down to the podium in the briefing room?
I'm not going to put this situation here because Doc's saying, yeah, totally. But there were many tanks.
When you first gave him that advice,
That's so
to
fucked
apply
up.
In 417 when the video statement went out. Would that have been possible?
Would it have been possible?
Yes.
Yes, it would have been possible.
And you will hear that Donald Trump never picked up the phone that day to order his administration
Just
to
bad
help.
internet connection nowadays.
This is not
and figured I'd
ambiguous.
drop in for a
He
moment,
did
but got
not
ahead of
call
it.
the
Have a good
military.
one. Thanks so
The
much. That
Secretary
was
of
really
Defense
nice of you.
received
I
no
hope you have a
order.
wonderful
He
evening.
did not call his attorney general. He did not talk to the Department of Homeland Security. Mike Pence did all of those things. Donald Trump did not. We will walk through the events of January 6th next week, minute by minute. And one more item. After our last hearing, President Trump tried to call a witness in our investigation, a witness you have not yet seen in these hearings. That person declined to answer or respond to President Trump's call and instead alerted their lawyer to the call. Their lawyer alerted us, and this committee has supplied that information to the Department of Justice. Let me say one more time, We will take any effort to influence witness testimony very seriously. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Gentlelady yields back. In my opening, I mentioned how we look to our leaders to serve as a fail-safe if people in this country refuse to accept the results of an election. That's part of the way those in positions of public trust uphold their oath, how they show fidelity to the Constitution. In the run-up to January 6th, Donald Trump had an obligation to tell his supporters to accept the results of the election. Instead, he urged them to further along the path toward mob violence. The idea of mob violence makes me think of another sort of fail-safe. All across this country, there are different ideas
we are
about
making
what role the
progress
federal
on this
government
fucker.
should play in our lives. In fact, up here on this dais,
Also, by the
there
way,
are
I'm on my
plenty of
second bullet
different
skin, and I'm
ideas.
not having the same problem as
But
I did
there
with the
are
other one,
moments
so I
when the
can't say that I'll never buy this
institutions
yarn
of our
again because
federal
it is
government
really nice
are
yarn.
the fail-safe. I am from a part of the country where, had it not been for the federal government and the Constitution,
For
my
those of you
parents and
that
many more Americans like
remember
them
me complaining
would
about
have
that last
continued
one.
to be treated as second-class citizens. The freedom to be able to vote without harassment, travel in relative safety, and dine and sleep where you choose is because we have a government that looks over the well-being of its citizens. This is especially important in moments of crisis. When we have a natural disaster that state governments can't handle on their own, when there's an emergency
That's a good
requires
kitty
action
kitty.
by our public health services
Are you gonna have
or our
sweet
military,
dreams,
we
sweet
have
baby
a federal
Rory,
government.
kitty boy?
What happened on January 6,
Who's a
2020
good kitty kitty
was
Rory?
another one of those moments in history that
I like your
test
dog.
the strength of our federal government. January 6th was an attack on our country.
Bought some yarn on clearance a
It
few
was
weeks
an
ago,
attack on
intending
our
to make some
democracy,
scarves, so now I'm worried I
our
didn't get enough
Constitution.
because I only bought one of each
A
color.
sitting
Yeah.
president
Unless
was
you're
a
doing
violent
stripes.
mob trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power from one president to another. It still
When he
makes
said his
my
name, he
blood
froze.
boil to think of it.
I love your kitty, and I've never
In a
met
moment
him.
like that, what would you expect to see? You expect to see the President of the United States sitting behind a resolute desk in the Oval Office, assuring the American people that the attack would be repelled and the threat would be dealt with. You'd expect to be reassured that there was a fail-safe. Instead, the President of the United States sent the mob. He disregarded the advice of the people who had taken an oath to the Constitution. He oversaw a scheme aided by people whose loyalty was only to Donald Trump. There's nothing we can compare that to. There's nothing in our great nation's history that has ever come close to that sort of betrayal and dereliction. Thank goodness, our system of
It
government
looks slightly more
failed
solid than the last bit
spite
of
of a
yarn.
commander-in-chief
I think it's just
who
because my
worked in
camera is better,
opposition to
to
what
be
the
honest. I think it's
Constitution
just
designed.
because my camera is
When this
better
committee
that it
reconvenes,
looks better.
we'll
You
tell
can
the
actually
story
like
of
see
that
through it this
supreme
time.
dereliction by the commander-in-chief, how close we came to a
Night Moth, have a good
catastrophe
one.
for our democracy,
We love you too.
and how we remain
Phoenix
in serious
Sativa, hi.
danger.
We're just getting ready to wrap up here, bud. I'm
Chair
so
requests
sorry.
those in the hearing room remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted witnesses and members from the room. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
All right, y'all, that's it. Thank you all so much for hanging out tonight. I'm going to finish this cluster here. We will be back on Monday, barring heinous weather. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I already did my shilling. Let's find somebody to raid. I would love if you guys would just say what the weather is like there so that chat is nice and active for our raid, and we can send a big fat girthy one on to somebody. I will see y'all on Monday. Have a good one.
Brian from Sparkler. Silence COSD gifted a T1 sub to Brian from IT. Setiduk Sparkler. Silence COSD gifted a T1 sub to Setiduk. Led_Wakila Sparkler. Silence COSD gifted a T1 sub to Led_Wakila. Silence COSD Sparkler. Also this blip.